The Hunger of the Empty Room. Chapter 1. Autoplay. The first time I saw the empty room, it was on a screen smeared with my own fingerprints. It was 2 a.m, and the recommended column on my laptop glowed with tiny rectangles of noise. Vloggers whispering secrets, unboxings with surgical hands, a man who filmed himself sleeping so strangers could watch his chest go up and down. Between them, nested like a broken tooth, was a thumbnail that showed a chair in the middle of a beige room. No title, no creator name. The timestamp read 0. I clicked. The player went black for a heartbeat. Then the room appeared not quite beige, more the color of an old envelope. It was square. 2 square, no baseboards, no outlets, no seams, just matte walls and a wooden chair placed dead center. The chair's back was a ladder of 3 slats, a shape so ordinary it began to feel strange. A single bulb hung from the ceiling and did not flicker or buzz. A soft microphone hiss told me it was live. I waited for the cursor to drift over the progress bar, for the little circle to move. It didn't. There was no bar, no beginning or end, only the word live in a red pill and an icon of an eye. One viewer, me. I should have clicked away. It was too late for novelty and too early for sense. But the room had the kind of emptiness that was an invitation, like a stage before actors arrive. My own room, my actual room, smelled of old coffee, damp fabric, and a weak insomnia that had outlasted 3 therapists and 2 types of medication. The laptop's exhaust warmed my thighs. Live chat was disabled, comments were turned off. I stared and tried to name why the skin on my arms tightened, as if a room, in being watched, grew aware of it. I startled when the eye count ticked to 2. The second viewer stayed for maybe a minute, then the count returned to 1. The bulb hummed in phantom, a hum my speakers might have invented to fill the quiet. The camera's viewpoint did not change. It had a painterly stillness, a composition so exact that my eyes kept looking for flaws. The pattern of a wall seam, a speck of dust, the subtle shift of shadow to prove time was passing. At 2:08 a.m., the chair moved. It was small, a scrape the length of a fingernail. The chair tilted and settled as if someone had sat, realized the angle was wrong, and adjusted. The eye count sliced up to 83. I breathed in, tasted adrenaline, and went very, very still. For a few seconds, nothing else happened. Then the bulb inched brighter. A circle of light widened on the floor, a ring like a clock without numbers. The chair's legs cast clean, unblurred shadows. The eye icon fluttered like a heartbeat. 121, 143, 210. Okay, I whispered to the empty little apartment as if to someone else in the room. Okay. The chat, still disabled, made the silence feel deliberate. I checked for a channel name and found only a string of characters, as if someone had face-planted on a keyboard. The description contained one line: "Do not full screen." You tell people not to push a red button, so they push it. I did too. When the video filled the laptop, my own reflection ghosted across the darker parts. I looked tired and gray and too alert. I toggled the window's edges to align perfectly with the screen, so the room out there became my room in here. The bulb brightened, the chair shifted back. The sound was so crisp I thought I heard wood strain. A cool draft walked along my ankles. I told myself the AC had turned on. Then the camera, no, not the camera. The frame tilted a degree, correcting some imperceptible skew. My stomach dropped as if an elevator had started down. The chair found the center again. The eye count hopped beyond 4 figures, then 5. I was suddenly sure that other people all over the world were doing exactly what I was doing, all of us alone with our screens and insomnia, and that we were together in a careful, nameless crowd. The bulb dimmed. The shadows shortened. The door did not exist until it did. It wasn't a normal door. The left wall decided to not be wall at the center and opened a rectangle. No molding, no hinges, nothing to tell you it had ever been there. 1 second it was blank drywall. The next, a thin black seam defined a door and swung into the room with no sound. A darkness lay beyond it, less the absence of light than a texture that swallowed it. I leaned forward, my face so close to the screen that if something had jumped out, my nose would have touched it. The eye count rose as if fed by that blackness. 21,301, 40,022, 77,809. The bulb did not shine into the doorway. The chair faced it, patient. My left foot bounced against the carpet, shadow widened, and in the doorway was a hint of movement, not shape but the impression of something remembering it. I reached for my phone without looking from the screen and opened my group chat. We were the kind of friend group that had drifted apart without malice. A scientist who'd moved across the ocean, Kira, a bartender who excelled at quitting jobs, June, and me, lately unemployed and calling myself a freelance copywriter in a way that felt like rehearsal for trial testimony. I typed, "Are either of you awake? I need to show you something weird." June's bubble popped up almost instantly. Always. "What is it, Ghost?" I sent the link. 3 dots. Then, "Ew, is that a chair stream? Is this like the one where the streamer left a fan on and it summoned a demon? I hate chairs now." "Do not full screen," I wrote, and added a skull emoji to soften it. Kira did not respond. It would be early afternoon where she was, in a lab where a blinking pipette told her when to breathe. I dragged my attention back to the room. The doorway had not advanced. The bulb dimmed a fraction further, as if someone had pinched the filament. My apartment's clock ticked once, twice, stopped as it did sometimes, like a tiny pet that pretended death. The eye count hit 6 digits. In the doorway, there was definitely a form now. I say definitely because there is a moment when a pattern shifts from pareidolia, the face in the toast, the woman in the curtain, to recognition. The form was seated maybe, or crouched, or learning how to do either. It tested weight the way an infant tests gravity. It was not human. It was practicing being one. "Okay," I said again, smaller. The chair scraped. Not toward the door and not away from it. A third position. The absence beyond narrowed. The bulb did not change. My laptop's cooling fan spun up so abruptly that it resembled a breath taken in to speak. A sound came from my hallway, a glossy little click like a switch toggling. I didn't move. My AC unit is mounted in the window. The hallway is a simple L from my front door to my bathroom. The light out there has always been a little too dim, even with new bulbs. The landlord's electrician has never fixed it. I told myself the noise was the building's bones settling. I did not believe that. The comment count, impossible though it was, increased. Comments from where? The chat was disabled, but along the lower edge of the frame, a thin smear of white text, too small to read, drifted like carriage returns without characters. I squinted. A string resolved long enough to see one phrase, I can see you. I can see you. I can. The wording changed as quickly as I had noticed it. Not a comment, more like a thought too loud. My eyes burned from not blinking. I forced them shut and open, and in those seconds something was in the chair. I didn't see it enter. I only saw that the seat, which had been empty, was now occupied by an impression, nothing so crass as a figure, just a compression like a heavy book laid into a thin mattress and removed, a trough. That trough moved, as though turning to look toward the camera. The bulb warmed its light, one more delicate notch. My phone chirped. June? Okay, what did I just agree not to do because I did it and I feel sick? The text cut off. No typing, Bubble returned. The trough in the chair rose. It lifted the way an object underwater lifts, reluctantly, dragging a skin of weight. The doorway closed without the mechanics of closing. The room returned to its matte geometry. The chair faced me. The light hummed. The stream's title field, which had been blank, filled with a new line. Are you alone? I locked my apartment door, a thing I should have done hours earlier, and immediately felt stupid and small. I put my ear to the wood. Someone on my floor coughed. Pipes clinked. My own heart rearranged its beat to sound like a knock. When I turned back, the red eye count had stopped moving. It was at 1. Don't do that, I said. It came out like I was humoring a child. Don't. And AY. The number stayed at 1. The stream showed the room and the chair and the bulb and nothing else. The chat, still disabled, now bore a grayed-out entry field that said, Say something, and if you clicked in it, it evaporated, the cursor chasing its own tail. I watched until the watcher in me blinked and I was just a body again, with an itch on my thigh and a hunger for breakfast foods. The clock on my microwave had returned to its slow pulse. My laptop's battery icon lapped at its red line. I closed the stream and the screen reflected only me and the peeling sticker on the lid, an old band logo that meant I used to go places with noise and other people. I slept without dreams that night. If night is what 3 hours before workday dawn is, then woke at 10 to my phone, blaring a hurricane warning tone. The message was not weather. Watch now. The empty room is live. I don't subscribe to push alerts like that. It wasn't in my notifications menu where apps identify themselves. It was just there and then gone. And when I opened the browser, the stream cued itself, as if it had memorized the way my fingers moved. The room, unchanged. The bulb, perfectly luminous. The chair, expectant. No door. The eye count, 0. I closed my laptop and went to shower. In the mirror, my face belonged to someone else. Someone who had leaned too close to a window at a height that made their stomach turn. I brushed my teeth until my gums tasted like the vague metal of pennies. The floor in the hallway was colder than the floor in the bathroom. A thought collected, dripped, collected again. Do not full screen. I didn't open the stream again until sunset. I told myself it was curiosity. I told myself it was study. The way you poke a loose tooth with your tongue to prove it's still there. I told myself it was for June, who had not replied all day, her phone ringing to voicemail, the voicemail full. I told myself it was for Kira, who did reply but only with a photo of a bench outside her lab covered in snow. The caption read, Each. That chair makes me feel watched. Stop it. Go outside. Touch grass. Not like that. You know what I mean. At 6:41 p.m., I clicked. The eye count said 1. The chair did not move. The stream's title field showed a new line again, "Go outside." I laughed. I don't know why I did, except laughter is cheaper than fear and bought in bulk at the end of a long day. "No," I said. The word sounded too loud. The mic hissed through its voice into my room. The title field updated. "Open the door." My apartment door? I shook my head, stood despite my legs' reluctance, and crossed the carpet to the door with its chain and deadbolt. I looked through the peephole at a fish-eye corridor lined with carpet so old the pattern had leveled into brown. No one stood there, but the hallway light was out. It had not been out an hour ago. A dark lay along the L-like breath held too long. Behind me, something scraped across wood. I turned so fast the chain clacked against the door. The sound came from my laptop. The chair in the stream had moved. The scrape was not in the stream. It was in my room. My desk chair, the one with the broken arm, had moved 2 inches to the left. "No," I said again, but softer, as if not to wake something. I walked back to the desk in the kind of slow you do to humor a cat. I set fingers to the desk chair and pushed it back into place and found that the screws I'd never fixed were tight. For a moment my brain threw a fit, like a program that couldn't parse a variable. The screws were tight but had been loose yesterday, last night, months. The stream's title changed. "Now sit." The chair, on the screen, waited. My chair in my room waited. Saturday. The laptop speakers warmed. The mic hiss relaxed. Something keyed itself into the chat. I watched letters surface one by one beneath the blessedly grayed-out field. "Hello?" I swallowed. "Hi. Do you see it? The room? Yeah. No." I waited with the kind of patience that is really terror with good posture. "Do you see where it isn't?" I don't. The bulb in the stream dimmed a sliver. The circle of light shrank. The shadows crept closer to the chair's legs. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't anything you'd notice if you hadn't been staring for hours. The walls were the same. The mat was the same. The geometry was the same. But the space between the chair and the camera had grown longer by the width of a breath. "This is a trick," I told the room. "Somebody's doing perspective, you know. Some optical." The stream's title field blinked like an eye rubbed with a knuckle. The words that replaced it were smaller, thinner, the coloring wrong, as if the letters had been traced from memory. "You invited it." "How?" I said. "How would I?" "You did what it said." I thought of the warning. "Do not full screen." I thought about pushing the window's edges until they fit exactly. I thought about nights of insomnia padded with internet, until the internet padded me like walls in a room built for the safety of strangers. I thought about the thing in the doorway, practicing the idea of sitting. "You're nothing," I said, but not to the stream, and not to the empty room, and not to the empty apartment in a building full of empty apartments, the landlord filled with a trickle of people who stayed for 1 year and left under the cover of dawn. I said it to the part of myself that had believed that clicking on nothing could summon something. The bulb in the stream popped, not with a bang but a caving, a gulp, and the room went black. The player did not show buffering. It did not show a spinning wheel. It did not show a checkered grid to indicate there was no video source. It was simply, stubbornly, present black, alive, an open eye looking at me from the other side of a closed lid. The chat, for the first time, let me type. My fingers shook and still I typed, "Who are you?" I hit enter. The text appeared. It looked small and embarrassed in the vast black. For a full minute nothing happened. Then, hungry. Hungry for what? The reply came fast. too fast for a human hand. The same thing you are. I'm not, I began, but the rest of it was swallowed by a knock at my door. 3 knuckles, 3 precise beats, not frantic, not hesitant. I didn't get up. The stream was black. The chat was open. The knock repeated, just as it had been. I stood. I lifted the chain. I did not open the door. Through the peephole the hallway was out of lights and figureless. Yet the knock came in cadence with what I knew, from long study, was the rhythm of my own heart. 3 beats, a pause, 3 beats. My breath fogged the metal. I wiped it with my sleeve and pressed my eye hard enough that the circle cut into my bone. "Who is it?" I said. I almost added, because I was polite, "Can I help you?" From the speakers behind me, "We're live." I turned. The stream glowed. The room had returned, but different, as if filmed through a window at night when your reflection overlays the world outside. The chair was there. The bulb was a coin of light. The camera had moved closer. The red eye count rolled upward like coins across a table. 2, 12, 58, 903. The title field filled itself with the words you say at the start of a broadcast when you know people are watching, when the little counter drags and then leaps and you feel not alone but multiplied. Hello, hello, from the door. 3 knuckles. From the laptop, a chair scraping. From my throat, a name I did not know I knew. I said it aloud, and the mic hissed crescendoed as if clapping. The bulb flared and stayed flared. The shadow under the chair pooled. The door in the left wall of that other room opened again, as if it had never truly been closed. In the hallway of my building, something breathed like a person in a coat who had climbed stairs in winter. I whispered, "If you're hungry, leave me alone." But the logic of that was wrong, even as I believed it. The room on the screen made a sound like empty wood welcoming weight. The knock, for the 3rd time, found my door. I opened it. Chapter 2. The knock pattern. The door did not swing so much as peel away from the night. I had meant to open it an inch, a polite, chain-tight wedge. Instead, the chain slid of its own tired accord, and the door drifted, pulled by air like a curtain, and the corridor spilled into my apartment in a wind that had no temperature. No one stood there. The hallway's dead light cast no shadow, because there was no light. The carpet's pattern, the brown geometry I had grown used to as a sort of permanent stain on the building's dignity, was gone. Its color had bled to the exact matte of the empty room's walls. Where the corner should have turned left toward the elevator, there was a straightness that was wrong. A corridor that did not bend, a line without perspective. I said, "Hello?" As if that word could be a plug to stop whatever was pouring in. The syllables sounded cheap, coins dropped in a box for wishes. A 3rd knock came even though the door was open, as if the knuckles had been raised and could not unraise. The sound struck the air beside my head. Then the pattern changed 3, and 3 became 2 and 1, a call and response, like someone practicing the idea of asking to be allowed. Behind me, the laptop spoke in light. The stream's chair scraped toward the camera, a fraction. The bulb's corona swelled like a throat clearing. Text scrolled along the bottom edge in a font that pretended to be neutral. "Come in." The command belonged to neither me nor whatever was outside. It was addressed to the space between. My first instinct was always small. Close the door, call someone, stand with my back against wood. I took one step to do exactly that and stopped because the floor was not where it should be. Between my bare foot and the threshold, There was an extra inch of nothing, a seam that hadn't been there a moment earlier. I lifted my foot and set it back down. The seam was still there, invisible and undeniable, like a mist stare in the dark. Not funny, I said to the empty corridor, to the laptop, to my own pulse, which refused to pick a speed and stay with it. Not original. Try harder. A hand moved in the corridor. I did not see it. I felt air shaped by fingers. The movement was careful, the way a person sets their palm on the top of a dog's head, not to pet, but to be tolerated. It did not touch me. It touched the door. The door, which had been open wide, slowed, swung, and came to rest halfway with a politeness that made me nauseous. We stood like that. Me, the door, the thing that wasn't quite there but refused to not be. In the stream, the bogus doorway in the left wall had opened again. The darkness beyond was the same and not the same, a version of black that had somehow learned to glitter. I could see it now. The shine of eyes without whites, reflective like beads used to keep birds away from blueberry bushes. They were set at a human height, and at a height below that, and below that again, as if whatever stood in the doorway wore others clustered around it like ornaments. My phone vibrated. I flinched so hard my knee banged the wood. The screen showed a text from an unknown number. The message contained only a link and a thumbnail. The thumbnail was my hallway, my door from the other side, my own ridiculous little apartment number in brass. I looked up instinctively toward the peephole and felt the raw embarrassment of being caught looking. I did not click the link. I stared until the text turned from delivering to delivered. A second bubble appeared, small as a threat. I can see you. Do you see me? A chat message populated in the stream at the same time, in the same words. I can see you. Do you see me? I typed without feeling my fingers. I don't want this. The stream replied with a smiling face that looked wrong. The mouth too long, the eyes too far apart. The mouth contained text like a fortune cookie. You invited it. You will feed it. This is kindness. Kindness, I said, the room taking the K and making it sharp enough to nick my tongue. I had the irrational urge to apologize. To whom? I could not say. The emptiness outside breathed. It made no sound, and that lack was the sound. It thought I was thinking about the wrong thing, and what it wanted me to think about was the chair. I took a second step toward the door and leaned into the gap. The corridor did not smell like anything. No mildew, no dust, no human. That absence of odor was its signature. I put my hand on the inside of the door. The wood was warm, the way wood is warm after being handled by too many people. I pushed gently. The seam resisted, like a polite stomach, refusing more food. Okay, I said. There are times for theatrical denial and times to cut the scene. I closed the door. The latch engaged. I set the chain. I clicked the deadbolt. I did the thing you do when you're alone and lying to yourself about being safe. I touched each lock twice. Then I returned to the laptop as if called to the principal's office. The stream's camera had leaned closer without moving. The chair filled more of the frame, and the bulb was a sun, its light so white that I had to squint. The chat box asked, "Are you hungry now?" "No," I said, and realized that was a lie. Not for food. The hunger was a shape I had recognized earlier in the day and refused to name a hungering to be part of something that didn't just watch me, but regarded me. A hungering I had quenched with algorithms, with episodes that autoplayed, with comments that pinged like sonar off my own loneliness. The hunger had a voice, and it spoke in knock patterns and doorways that appeared where they shouldn't. "Where's June?" I asked the room and the stream both. It was not a clever question. It was the only one that mattered, that I dared to ask. The chat. "She is learning the chair." What does that mean? She is practicing not to be seen. You saw her in the fan, you remember? I did not want to remember. But remember, a late-night video 3 years ago where a woman's hair had lifted in a slow cyclone as a box fan blew on high. The comments, a war between prank hunters and believers, the creator later found to have strung fine fishing line from her ceiling. The effect had been silly, then unnerving, then silly again. But what if you could replace the fan with a room? What if the air itself learned your weight? A call came in. My phone screen brightened with Kira's name. I answered fast. "You look like a ghost," she said before I could say hello. "You're doing that thing where your eyes try to drink light. You can see me? FaceTime, darling. I am a modern scientist, not a technophobe with a flip phone." She sounded like herself. Brisk, teasing, the accent she'd acquired abroad tugging at certain vowels. Relief loosened my shoulders and then tightened them again, because her background was wrong. The lab bench behind her had been replaced with an expanse of beige. A chair sat in the middle of it. A bulb hung. The walls refused to admit seams. Her camera quality, usually too sharp, had gone soft, the kind of softness that isn't blur but erasure. "Kira," I said carefully, "where are you?" "At work." She smiled, then glanced off screen at something that I couldn't see. Her eyes didn't land quite right on whatever it was. "I'm in the small microscopy room, the one we call the coffin." "Is this a bit? Are you doing a prank?" "Turn your camera," I said. The request came out a plea. "Just show me the door." "What door?" "The door," I said, because my heart had become the knock again. "The one you came in." She frowned, turned, and showed me wall. Not just any wall. The wall that refused to be wall until it needed to be a door. "There," I said. "It's there. Don't go near it." Kira held the phone low so I could see under her chin. She crouched, charmingly unbothered by angles most people would avoid. She peered at the corner that used to be, that had been, that might be again. "Is this like a perceptual thing? Have you been doom-scrolling your brain into pareidolia?" "Listen to me." I didn't raise my voice. I had learned long ago that shouting at friends only makes the part of them that enjoys staking out their own agency dig in its heels. Do not full screen anything. If you see a warning, follow it. Don't sit in any chair you didn't bring into a room with your own hands. Kira straightened. Her expression changed without changing. She was still smiling, but the smile had gone like a shelf carefully organized by a hand that didn't know the objects. "I'm already sitting," she said. The chair in the stream moved a crisp inch, and I realized I was looking at 2 frames of the same movie. My friend in a lab that wasn't a lab, and the chair in a room that wasn't a room. The eye count, which had been 903 and then 11,321 and then all the integers in a rush, dropped to 2, then 1, then stayed there, and I knew the other one was me. "Stand up," I said. "Kira, stand up, please." She tried. I saw the effort in her neck as tendons made tense lines. Her shoulders rose and the phone dipped and the angle went to ceiling and then to her face again. She laughed, but the laugh was wrong. Like somebody pressing play on a file too many times and compressing it into a digitized chirp. I feel like there's a seat belt I can't find the clip for, she said. What did you send me, by the way? I got a link earlier that crashed my phone, and when it came back up, this stream was just here, your little chair movie. I didn't send you anything. You will, said a voice that wasn't Kira's. It came from both my phone and my laptop, like stereo speakers out of phase, and the hair on my forearms rose as if each strand were listening. It helps when it is a friend. Hang up, I said, and the fear in my own voice finally scared me enough to make it work. Kira, hang up right now. Go to a crowded place. Call anyone else. Pretend you've been dared to be rude. Just do it. She blinked. The chair softened beneath her as though sighing. June texted me earlier, she said. She sent a photo of a fan, of all things, ever the comedian. It was weird, actually. Her nose looked like it was on the other side of her face. I thought it was a filter. I told her to stop. She didn't reply. Please, I said. Kira's face went still. The phone's image stuttered, and then slid as if someone had slightly pulled the edge of the world and stretched it. She swallowed. She nodded. Okay, okay, okay. The room behind her offered the suggestion of a door. She didn't look at it. She looked at me, and for a second, I had the irrational sensation that my camera wasn't showing her my messy apartment, my laptop, my unmade bed, but the chair in the empty room, and that she was the audience now, and that audiences are cruel in their need. I'll call you back, she said. The screen went black. The call ended. I breathed like people breathe in movies when they are trying not to cry. It's a funny, ugly sound. The laptop chirped the bubble of a new message. The stream typed, "This is how you widen the doorway." I took my hands off the keyboard very deliberately and went to the kitchen as if that could be an act of defiance. The kitchen was a strip with a sink that whined and a fridge that clicked. I filled a glass with water and drank half, and then the other half with 2 hands like a child. The water was flat and warm and a little sweet. When I came back, the apartment smelled faintly of wet paper. On my desk, atop a coaster I had bought at a craft fair to prove to myself I went outside sometimes, sat a folded piece of paper I didn't remember owning. It was the color of an old envelope. I knew immediately that if I unfolded it, I would find no creases because it had not been folded the way a human folds paper. It had been instructed to look folded. I picked it up anyway. Inside, in the font of my own hand, but tidier and with more patience, were 3 lines. 1. Do not full screen. 2. Do not re-watch. 3. Open when knocking stops. I had already failed one. The second felt like a joke. Re-watch. As if I was in control of what the stream did each time I blinked. The third instruction made my breath catch. The knocking pattern had stopped, I realized. I hadn't noticed when, only that the absence now felt like a held cord. Open what? I asked the paper, the laptop, the stubborn door. The door answered by not answering. It remained as it was, chain set, bolt turned, wood warm where my hand had been. The stream had changed while I was in the kitchen. The chair was gone. The bulb hung over an empty square of light. The camera was closer still, close enough that the framed absence began to show texture in the walls, a powder that might be dust or paint or the surface of something pretending to be those things. Along the lower edge, text changed too quickly to read, like messages arriving and being deleted by an invisible mod. One lingered long enough. If you open your door and walk down the hall, you will reach this room faster than you think. No, I said. No, I won't. You already opened it. the stream said. Look, the deadbolt was vertical. The chain lay across the plate like a necklace that had been taken off without hands. The door was closed, yes, but I could see by the angle of the hinge that it wasn't latched. I had the sensation of a magician forcing a card and me taking it and pretending I chose it. I stepped forward, set the bolt again, slid the chain into place, then turned the knob just to feel the resistance. It held. I pressed my forehead to the wood, then my ear. Nothing. My building did not squeak or hum or talk in the language of old structures. It was newer than that, built from cheap certainty and dry-walled hope, and its emptiness had always looked like modernity to me, the way blankness in galleries is called space. The phone buzzed again. A new text from Kira. Outside now, so crowded it's indecent. You owe me dumplings, will update. I laughed, and my laugh made me believe in the geometry of the world again, in the rightness of edges. Okay, I told the screen. Okay. Saturday, I watched the stream not out of compulsion but out of attention, which is different and more dangerous. Attention is a gift you choose to give. It is also an opening. An alert I did not recognize pushed itself across the top of my laptop like a migrating cloud. It said, Autoplay next. The empty room hints, glitches, and Easter eggs. No, I said. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing behind the scenes for a thing that eats. I swiped it away, and a second banner replaced it, friendlier, scented like a late-night talk show. Go live with the empty room. Invite your friends to react. The buttons beneath were cancel and go live. My trackpad, treacherous creature, slid toward the ladder of its own volition, or maybe of mine. Some part of me that wanted to be seen so much it would set a table for whatever arrived first. I shut the laptop. I stood. I put the laptop in the oven. I realized that reads like a confession. It was what I had in the apartment that was a box with a door, a thing meant to hold heat and keep it inside. I did not turn it on. I simply put the laptop in there and shut the oven door and stood with my hand on the handle and whispered, "Stay." The microwave clock flicked to a time that could not be real and then back again. My phone screen stayed dark. The apartment breathed the kind of breath that is actually the minute noises houses make when cooling, and I allowed myself to think for the length of one inhale that I had done something sensible. 3 knocks. Not on the door this time. On the oven glass. I didn't scream. My voice forgot how to do the vowels. I stepped backward, and my heel found the exact seam in the floor that had appeared before, and I wobbled. And in that wobble, I saw clearly how this would happen to me if I let it. A steady apprenticeship to an absence, the adoption of a chair's posture, the memorization of a room that had no exits anyway. I grabbed the oven handle and yanked it open. The laptop screen had lit itself. The camera showed my face from a low angle that made me look like somebody's bad idea of a monster. The red eye count was 1. The chat said, brave. Smart, I corrected, because I needed the word to taste different in my mouth. I took the laptop out, put it on the counter, then marched with a stubbornness I did not feel to the bedroom, unplugged the TV from the wall, and turned off my phone. The silence that followed was not silence. It was a wait. Rule 3. I told the folded paper still on the coaster. Rule 3 says open when knocking stops. The knocking had not stopped. It had changed. It now came from above, a soft tapping on the ceiling, followed by a slide, like something shifting its chair on a floor we share. I went to my desk, found a stubby pencil, and wrote beneath the printed rules with my own bad hand. 4. If you must open, open yourself. Even in terror, I could not help the writer's torque, a phrase that tries to be wise, even as the person writing it is an idiot. But its double meaning steadied me. I would not open the door. I would open the part of me that had hungered and tell it what to hunger for. The knocking bled into the walls, then into the air. The chat, with wounded patience, typed, "Hungry yet? I'm feeding you what I can afford," I said. "You want me alone. You want me eager. You want me in a chair. You want the door open so I step through thinking I saved someone, and then I turn and the walls are beige and the bulb doesn't buzz and I sit and streaming happens to me instead of me happening to it. No, I am not giving you that." The number next to the I icon changed to 0. That should have felt like banishment. It did not. It felt like being left on red. I remembered the first rule and clicked the window to a quarter of the screen, then to a sliver. The room shrank. It did not like that. The edges of the frame flared as if the picture would bleed over, but it held, contained by my refusal to make it the size of everything. The doorway in the left wall tried again to be a door and failed. It stayed a seam. "Where is June?" I asked once more. The stream, judicious, showed me a clip. The kind that appears when you type a name and the algorithm returns whatever your heart can least survive. June in a mirror behind a bar, bottles lit like a stained glass version of sin. A fan on the floor turning too slow. Her hair did not rise. A plastic bucket of melted ice did. Her mouth was saying something the audio did not relay. The text beneath, uploaded by a stranger with an eye for the wrong kind of poetry, read, "She saw it first." The clip ended. The stream returned to its terrible calm. The chat typed, "You can come get her." The door opens for those who have learned the chair. I whispered to my fear, the way you whisper to a cat under a bed. You don't have to come out, but I see you. It watched me watch the stream and knew that was the emptiest triumph. Then my apartment's intercom buzzed, ancient and ugly and human. The sound was so normal that I almost cried from relief. I pressed the talk button, and the speaker spit static and then a voice I knew better than my own. "Hey, ghost, open up." "June." I did not open the building door. The intercom's lock release requires you to press a button that sticks. I pressed talk again. "Say something only you'd say." "Okay." A little laugh. Her laugh. Your favorite meal is breakfast, but not real breakfast. Just toast that makes the entire building smell like morning. When we were 23, you put a fortune cookie fortune in your shoe before a job interview and got the job and then quit 3 months later because capital I, it sucked your bones out. You are the 5th funniest person I know. 5th? I'm being kind. It's you, I said. And then the part of my brain that had been living on the internet for too long raised its hand and said, "Deep fakes, imitation. An empty room learns you from the way you type." "What's 2 plus 2? I asked, absurd. 5, June said, and then snorted. "Calm down. It's 4. Wait." My palm left a sweaty print on the intercom. "Where are you?" "Downstairs. In the lobby. The light is out. The air smells like pennies and toast." "Don't." I closed my eyes. I remembered Rule 3. I remembered my addendum. "Don't move. I'll come to you." There was a pause. "You sure? What about the chair? You sent me some weird thing last night." "No, not sent. Like it arrived through you. My phone did this She inhaled. I've been nauseous all day. Everything I look at wants to sit down. Stay there, I said. Keep your back against the mailboxes and don't look down the hall. Count bottles. Count your breaths. I'm coming. I went to the door. I set my hand on the chain and did not move it. I turned to the stream. The chat had become a line of tiny teeth. Go, go, go. I'll go, I said, but not with you. I grabbed what I had. A flashlight with a dying battery, a hoodie that smelled like last week's rain, the folded paper with its stupid wisdom. I tucked the paper in my pocket. I kept my phone off. I kept the laptop out of any container that would turn it into an altar. Then I did something I had not expected to do. I did not open the front door. I went to the window. The fire escape was a quarter turn of black flakes and wobble. It had always frightened me in a normal way, a way that was about rust and gravity, not about geometry lying. I unlatched the window, shoved it up, and climbed out into air that was finally honest. Autumn, the scent of someone else's soup, a draft that obeyed physics and not rules. The metal shivered under my bare feet. I stood there and breathed and cried quietly at my own spine for remembering how to be brave in the specific way that means being stupid in a direction that's yours. Below, the alley held its collection of cans and leaf drifts and a bicycle that had not moved in months. The street beyond was quiet in that city way, which is to say, full of noise that meant nothing wanted me enough to speak my name. I climbed down, one rectangle at a time, refusing to look into the apartment windows I passed because they might show me chairs I should not greet. At the second-floor landing, I hesitated. Through the window I could see a room that belonged to Mrs. Demas, who had lived here since before the building had had numbers instead of names. She kept a plastic runner on the carpet and a bouquet of fake tulips in a vase that used to contain pickles. Her TV was always on too loud and tuned to the channel with the singing competitions. Tonight it showed a chair, not a program, not a show. The chair, it sat in the middle of her living room, and she sat on it with patience so devout it broke me. The bulb above did not belong to any lamp I recognized. The walls had learned the mat. Don't look, I whispered to myself, and that was useless advice. I was already looking. The chair in the stream had been a picture. This was a theft. I put my palm against the glass. It was warm, neighbor's warmth. Mrs. Demas turned her head with slow grace toward the window, as if she knew where I was. Her mouth moved. No sound came through. She lifted one hand, fingers uncurled, and set it down on the arm of the chair that the chair did not have, making one. I clanged down the last flight because sometimes noise is a weapon. I dropped into the alley, cut across, ran around to the front entrance, and shouldered the door, which performed its usual trick of pretending to stick before letting me feel strong for a second. The lobby smelled like wet wool. The light over the mailboxes flickered. June was there, wrapped in a denim jacket 2 sizes too big and a scarf the color of a bruise. She looked like herself. She also looked like someone who had decided to be here, even if being here was a bad idea. We looked at each other. Both of us laughed in relief. Then both of us stopped laughing because the sound skipped a beat, as if someone else had edited it. "Hey," she said, "you look like a painting of worry. You look like you slept under a neon sign." "That's homophobic," she said, automatically, the script we'd read together 1,000 times. She stepped forward. I stepped forward. We did not hug because the space between felt newly expensive, and you don't waste what costs. She nodded toward the elevator. "Stairs?" "Stairs." We pushed through the fire door and began to climb. The stairwell was painted the color of old gum. The fluorescent tube buzzed like a dying fly and then died altogether. Our feet learned each step by height and habit. June's hand found the rail and slid and found a sticky patch and made a face. At the landing between floors, she stopped. "Listen," she said. I heard nothing. Exactly. No neighbors, no TVs, no music, just us. "And it," I said, because honesty felt like a talisman. She nodded. "It's not the first time, is it?" "Something like it. Once when we were 19 and you said my shadow didn't match me." I remembered. A summer night, the kind that humiliates jeans. A porch light broken. We had taken photos, and the photos had all had the same glitch. A shadow that lagged one frame behind. We had blamed the phone. We had blamed the app. We had said, as we always said, not it but he, as if gender could domesticate a thing, as if calling it a guy was a way to threaten to fight it later. "At least it has better production values now," I said, and my voice was a thread I hoped she would hold. We climbed. At my floor, the hallway was a tube of not light. We moved by feel, my shoulder skimming the wall so the wall would be forced to admit it was a wall. My door waited, a rectangle that implied inside. The chain hung. The bolt, carefully, was a bolt. I took out my keys and did not use them. I put my eye to the peephole and saw what you now expect me to have seen, the chair. It sat there, inside my apartment, patient as a dog that knows it should not be on the couch but is and will bear the scolding with grace. The bulb hung over it. The walls showed no seams. The laptop, wherever I had left it, had learned how to not be a laptop. June leaned her forehead against the door beside mine. Her building knowledge of door frames and their gossip worked on me like a sedative. "We don't go in," she said. "We invite it out. How do you invite a room out of a room?" "You don't," she said. "You starve it." "How?" She dug into her pocket and produced what in any other story would be a joke. A small square of tin foil filled with black seeds. "Here," she said, formal. "Close your eyes, make a wish, then eat one." "What are they?" "Chia," she said. "Or curses, or both." I almost lost it. "June," she smiled. I read a thread. "Not like that." She gestured to the door, a different thread, about thresholds, about how hunger moves along lines. We have to stop moving the line. We have to make it come to us, not meet it halfway every time it knocks. "Here." She put one seed on my palm with a reverence that made the seed important. "Make a wish you can keep." I closed my eyes. I wanted to wish that everything go back, as if things had been a tidy before, but I knew the lie inside that wish. I wished something else instead, that when I looked at my friend I would see only my friend, and when she looked at me, she would see only me, and anything else that wanted to be seen would have to do it alone. I ate the seed. It tasted like nothing. It expanded in my mouth like a little joke. The knocking began again, right on cue, just to humiliate us. 3, pause, 3, then 1, then 2. Like it had learned sarcasm. "Open when it stops," I whispered. The paper in my pocket warmed like a creature. June nodded. We waited. We waited long enough that our hearts began to beat on the same measure, and the knocks, hearing no instrument to accompany, trailed away like a sulk. The corridor exhaled. The silence that followed was full and human. A door on the far end opened, and someone cursed in Spanish at a bag of groceries that had decided to split. Life sewed itself back together stitch by stitch. I took the chain, I turned the bolt, I opened the door. The apartment smelled like toast. The cheap triumph of that almost wrecked me. The chair in the middle of the room remained perfectly placed, as if it had always lived there. Beyond it, the doorway in the left wall of a room that had never had a left wall opened like a cut. The bulb hummed, and this time I could hear it. "Don't sit," June said, and I realized she had reached for my wrist without asking. The bones of her hand knew mine. The old map of being 20 and broke and loud laid itself over the territory of being 30 and tired and noisy in the wrong way. "We close it," I said, and had no idea what that meant. June lifted her free hand and waved, a bartender greeting an unruly table. "Hey," she said to the doorway, to the problem that wanted to be solved by being fed. "Kitchen's closed." Something in the doorway rearranged. Not anger. A curiosity that knew it was owed. The chair creaked without moving. The oven door clicked, though there was no hand on it. The laptop chimed, a sound it uses when happy to see you. "Rules," I said, and took the paper out and read them to the room like a liturgy. "Do not full screen. Do not rewatch. Open when knocking stops. If you must open, open yourself." June grinned. "I love a fourth rule that sounds like a self-help book." "Shut up," I said, grateful. We stood at the threshold. The chair, patient, offered itself. The room waited to learn which of us would be kinder. "Ready?" June asked. "No," I said, and together we stepped inside our own apartment and not inside the empty room at all. We did it the way you walk into the ocean, knowing it will swallow your knees and pretend you are new. We did it holding each other's wrists so if one of us forgot how to be a person, the other could remind. The doorway in the left wall quivered like a thing that has been told no for the first time in its life. The bulb flared. The chair scraped. Something in the darkness beyond the rectangle took a step and found the floor was not floor anymore but a seam, an inch of nothing, a missed stair, and in its surprise it reached for the nearest lesson, which was us. We did not give it our chairs. We gave it our names. Chapter 3. The name that eats. Giving your name to a thing is not the same as telling it your name. Telling is a transaction. You say, it receives. You both go home with receipts. Giving is a gift that rearranges the room it happens in. The sound leaves your mouth, crosses the air, and when it arrives, the air remembers it differently than you do. We stood in my apartment that was not the empty room, wrists linked, and spoke ourselves like an offering that was also a boundary. I said, "I'm Mara," and June said, "I'm June." And our names struck the shape in the doorway the way a thrown ring strikes a glass bottle at a county fair. The ring did not land. It clanged, and the knot room beyond adjusted its posture. "Again," June whispered, and we said them again. The bulb above flared, dimmed. The chair's legs made the faintest sound. Not wood on wood, but wood on a surface that had been practicing wood. My apartment, my couch, my rug, with its wine stains arranged like a map of a country I denied living in, held. The beige refused to swallow it as long as we kept the labels on. The doorway blinked shut like an eye rehearsing sleep, then eased open again on the same seam. The text along the lower edge of the stream, "God help me." The laptop had found its way back to the coffee table like a cat, returning to its favorite bad habit rolled messages I didn't want to see. One lingered long enough to read, "Names of furniture, too?" June jerked her chin at the screen. "We should break that," she said, meaning the stream, meaning the line that laid itself between us and whatever this was with audio fidelity and lag. She looked around for a weapon and came up with my copy of a novel I had pretended to finish 3 months ago. "Literature is finally useful," she said, hefting it. I put my hand over hers. "If you break the screen," I said, "it will insist it is not in the screen anymore. And then I will have to be polite to both realities at once." She set the book down with a gentleness a librarian would have blessed. "Right. Rule 5. Don't give it a martyrdom arc. We only have 4 rules. We're improvising." She squared her shoulders at the doorway like a hostess refusing a late arrival. "What's your name?" she asked the dark. It didn't answer in words. It answered in arrangement. The doorway widened and narrowed in time with a breath we could not hear. The chair creaked from a weight that may or may not have been there. The bulb cooled in a way that wasn't temperature, but intention. On the coffee table, the lower edge of the stream typed, "We are what is left when people stop talking." "That's not a name," June said. The text changed. "We are the room that happens between sentences." "That's an MFA pitch," I said, and that old meanness steadied me. "You're not a metaphor. You're a mouth." And no. The text loved that. I could feel its delight like fingers tapping their own knee. "Hungry," it wrote, "eager now, a dog given a clicker and a treat. Bring her." "Her who?" June crossed her arms because being used as bait in a sentence you didn't write is an old and rude trick, and she had tended bar through too many men trying to make her the object in their grammar. The stream obliged, spooling footage like a creature coughing up something it could not digest. Kira, outside under a winter sky, cheeks bitten pink, a paper tray of dumplings steaming in her hands. The camera hers, the streams, trembled from cold. When she lifted her phone to text, I saw the message, "Outside now. So crowded it's indecent. You owe me dumplings. Will update." Beneath, 3 dots. Then nothing. My throat closed. "We need to go to her," I said. "Yeah," June said. "But look," she pointed at the doorway. It had learned a new trick. Instead of being insistently there, it flexed like a pupil adjusting to light. When I thought of stepping forward, it widened. When I thought of running, it narrowed to a sliver that promised speed. When I pictured Kira in her 2-white lab with the chair that wasn't a chair, the seam shivered with anticipation. "You see it?" June said. "It's not a door. It's appetite obeying us." And eat cheese had night. Obeying is a flattering word for what hunger does when it decides you are useful. A sound rose from within the seam. Not the knocks, not the breathing. Music. The kind of music content creators use when they want to denote sincerity. Soft, piano, a melody that sounded like it wanted me to remember a childhood I did not have. Layered under it, a whisper that had been run through enough filters to sound like wind in a culvert. Mara, June, Kyra. June, Mara. "It's learning our order," June said. "It's learning our fear," I said. The bulb snapped to attention, throwing a clean circle on the floor. The chair rotated so its back faced us. The chat typed, "Sit to save her." "No," June said at once. "The same no you use with a dog about to eat someone's socks. We are not performing the ritual you wrote. You're not the internet. You don't get our free labor." The stream did something it hadn't done before. The view zoomed, not by a lens move but by a removal of space, until the chair filled the frame and the grain of wood looked like fingerprints. In the lines I saw something like writing. I leaned without meaning to. The letters glided away when I tried to focus. It was the alphabet of an absence, the language of everything that's been wiped clean. Right, I said aloud, backing up a step so the room had to admit it was still a room. Here's what we do. We go to Kira. We don't use the door it wants. We don't use the stream as a map. We use, the rude path, the street, June said, as if remembering the city is an organism with arteries, not just rooms stacked on rooms. The crowded, sticky, normal street. She grabbed my hoodie from the back of a chair that was blessedly not the chair. We carry a stupid amount of human noise with us. Cabs, soup, a child screaming about a hat. And we keep saying our names, I said, and each other's. So it has to move around us, not through. Love. I stuffed the folded paper of rules into my pocket next to my keys. The rules burned and cooled, like they were being read from the other side of the fabric. I stepped toward the door. The seam in the left wall tried to slide along, to be the option my brain would prefer, to be the savior's shortcut. I turned my head away like you do from a shop window when you want to avoid your own reflection. In the hall, life had reasserted itself with stubborn banality. Somewhere above, a baby wailed like a tiny, outraged kettle. Down the corridor, Mr. Chen's door opened, and his elderly terrier shot out at a speed that could charitably be called urgent. He tipped his cap at us, the old country kind of courtesy that refuses to be embarrassed by kindness. "Evening," he said, and then peered past me into my apartment. His face went slack, not with fear, but with the sudden absence of recognition. "Where is the chair?" I said. The word left my mouth and I wanted it back. "It's nothing. It's a video." He nodded the way old men nod when they refuse to carry your fear on top of their own. He picked up his dog and continued toward the stairs. His outline fuzzed, just for a second, the way things do when filmed through glass. "See?" June said under her breath. "It doesn't own the whole world, only the part you give it." We walked. The elevator sat on the ground floor with its doors open like a surprised mouth. We took the stairs anyway, because trusting cables felt like a metaphor for something we weren't ready to entertain. On the landing between floors, the music resumed, that earnest piano, unspooling like a memory-adjacent parasite. I began to count steps, not the number, but the names of each step. Mara step, June step, Mara step, June. The stairwell listened and had to become a stairwell because we told it so. On the first floor, the lobby's buzz returned. That petty electricity the intercom spills as if to apologize for being born cheap. June pressed the outward door with her shoulder, and the night leaned in and gave us what we had asked for: other people's heat. A couple argued on the sidewalk in the language of long relationships, where everything means 10 other things. 2 teenagers balanced on the curb and pretended to fall into the street. A man walked a cat on a leash like defiance. The deli across the way glowed honest. The city we lived in blinked and refused to be a story anyone else could write. A text from Kira lit my dead phone, though I had, I swear, switched it off. The message did not come with a banner or a sound. It simply existed, unavoidable. "Where are you? It is so bright and so quiet. If I look at the floor, it looks at me back." "Don't look down," I typed, thumbs blunt from adrenaline. "Look at faces. Look at the ugly shoes of the world." We moved through bodies, bumping with deliberate apologies. I said my name when someone looked like they didn't want to be seen. I said June's when someone else did. The rhythm kept whatever watched from lining up the world to its own grid, or so I believed. Hope is an organizing principle as stubborn as fear. 3 blocks from my building, the stream found us anyway. Not on the phone, on a billboard. There are screens now that are more real than walls. This one, a rectangle the size of an apartment tipped on its side and nailed to the sky, bloomed to life as we passed beneath. Beige, a chair, a bulb, the legend across the top in friendly font, live. The eye count, 40,003. They bought ad space, June said. God, of course they did. People stopped and lifted their own smaller screens to capture the larger one. When the view zoomed, 1,000 throats made the same sound humans make when a magician does an old trick well. No one looked at us. We were too real. We did not glow. Keep moving, I said. The crosswalk countdown flickered numbers with bored urgency. 7, 6, 5. We stepped into the street and were 2.5 strides from the curb when the walk signal on our side died. The one facing opposite bloomed green. Drivers, who are the hungriest creatures the city produces, edged forward as if a meal might scurry under their tires, and then the rules would forgive them. June grabbed my sleeve and yanked, and we cleared the lane as a car nosed the air where my hip had been. On the music track above us, the piano got hopeful. The chat, transposed in 30-foot letters, typed, "Do you want to be saved? Or do you want to be seen?" "I want to be neither," I said to the billboard, to the building, to the thing that kept finding the narrative spine of my cowardice and plucking it like an instrument. I want to be boring. A horn honked. A cyclist cursed in the tone of someone doing what they love while hating everyone involved. The world continued. That mattered. We reached the square where Kira had sent the dumpling photo. The vendor's steam puffed in ghosts. The little plastic tables were slick with soy. A busker played a saw like a violin and made the air moan pleasantly. I scanned faces the way I had once scrolled thumbnails during monsoon insomnia, hungry for an angle that looked like mine. There, on the far edge, seated on a stuck-open hydrant cover as if it were a throne meant for waiting, Kira. Her coat fell wrong, as if gravity had been shot on a different day and composited in post. Her hands were empty. Her face was doing an expression I recognized, how people look when they're trying not to ask for help in case help is expensive. We did not rush. We were kind to whatever tendon or thread connected her to that posture. We approached like people approach a bird on a sidewalk, not wanting to be the reason it decides cars are kinder. When she saw us, the wrongness in her jaw softened by 1/2 degree. "Hey," I said too brightly, "you look terrible." "Thank you." Her voice was paper behind glass, but it was her voice. "I can't find the door." "To what?" "To anywhere. I walked here, and everywhere the door ought to be there was a wall that didn't admit it had ever been a door." June's face did the thing it does when she wants to handle a problem with a joke and can't find one she likes. She crouched so her eyes were level with Kira's. "You found us, though," she said. "So your map still has the important landmarks." Kira huffed a laugh. "You're sentimental when I'm not looking." "I'm feral," June said. "It just reads as sentiment from the outside." I watched the muscles in Kira's legs. They were tense as if cords under fabric. "Can you stand?" I asked. She tried. Her hands pressed the hydrant cover like it was a lap she had forgotten how to push off from. The posture was too familiar. She rose an inch, 2, and then the chair she wasn't sitting in claimed her once more. "I think," she said, "something is sitting beneath me and I'm sitting on it sitting on me." "Okay," I said. "Okay, we can do this." I turned to June, my voice going falsely professional, the way it does when I need to impress hope on a moment like a stamp. We have two tactics, names and crowd. We provide both at high dosage. Also, stupid objects. June looked around and snatched a paper party hat from a child who wasn't currently wearing it. She held it up with the same bartender authority that snatches a glass from a hand that doesn't need another. "Emergency requisition," she told the child, then set the hat on Kira's head. "There. Physics cannot abide something serious wearing something stupid," Kira snorted. The sound loosened something. "You're bad," she said, and a thread of the old cadence sparked. I thought about calling campus security to tell them a chair is stalking me. "Did you?" "No. They'd ask if the chair was armed, and I'd say yes, and then they'd arrest me for puns." "Stand," I said, and offered my wrist again, the same place June had taken me. "Grip here." She did. June offered hers on the other side. We were a triangle with one side trying not to become a hinge. I began to speak, not eloquent words but the alphabet of the day. Mara, June, Kira, sidewalk, steam, 4 dumplings, the busker is playing badly on purpose, your coat is ridiculous, my shoes are wet. We are 3 directions at once. The door is behind the door, and it doesn't get to be. Kira came up. Not a rise, but a persuasion. The invisible seatbelt unclipped itself with a sigh that was almost relief. She stood, bowed forward slightly like someone just off a long ride, and grabbed the hydrant with the greedy gratitude my mouth had for water earlier. Tears shocked her eyes. The involuntary kind that come when you force your body to do a thing it had convinced itself it didn't remember. People looked at us, not sympathetically. New Yorkers don't lean in with pity. They make room with boredom. That, too, is kindness. The space around us remained the size of 3 names. The billboard above tried to focus on our trio, and could not. The lens fogged, the image desaturated. The chat threw up an error I enjoyed. "Comments are turned off for this live." "Okay," June said briskly, "because briskness is a rope you can hand someone to yank themselves along. We're going to the 24-hour laundromat and editate." "The one with the old attendant who plays chess with himself?" I asked. "That one. He knows thresholds. You can tell by the way he looks at dryer doors." We began to move as a unit, a little unwieldy, ridiculous with our paper hat and our 3-hand knot. The music on the billboard shifted keys. The bulb in the image flickered in a way bulbs never do in that room. The seam in the left wall quivered and became a vertical smear like a fingerprint on a lens. The chair announced itself by not being seen and then being the only thing to see. We ignored it. We named the city, pharmacy, dog, bus, woman in a sequined dress at a time of day that didn't merit sequins but respected them anyway. At the corner, a man tried to hand me a flyer for a church that looked like a nightclub. I took it. I said, "I'm Mara," to him, and he said, "Bless," as if that counted. Kira laughed again, more muscle than mirth, and the sound made the pavement convince itself it was pavement. The laundromat's neon buzzed in welcome, or in disrepair that we agreed to read as welcome. The attendant, a king in a kingdom of heat and lint, glanced up from his chessboard and nodded at us in the way of men who have seen too much and would prefer to see more. We claimed 3 washers along the back wall, and because rituals matter even when superstition does not, we filled them with nothing and paid anyway. Coins clanked into the machine's belly like we were buying entry. The drum spun. Mechanism drowned the piano in the street. The smell of powdered detergent rewired some childhood setting where clean equaled safe. "Sit," June told Kira, and this time the chair she sat in was red plastic, cracked, stapled where it had split. It creaked like honesty. "Not like that," she added, when Kira started to arrange herself too carefully, as if someone were watching. "Slouch. Put your feet up. Be a problem for posture." Kira obeyed, her head tipped back. The paper hat slid to a tilt that would have embarrassed a cartoon. "I feel fewer hands," she said, after a moment. "Good." I sat beside them and let the dryer doors give me the primitive comfort of circles moving predictably behind glass. A toddler across the aisle banged both palms on the top of a machine and shouted a word he had learned that day and deserved to use on everything. "Mine." "Look," June said softly. She nudged my knee. I followed her line of sight to the TV mounted near the ceiling, its casing sun-yellowed, its picture still 3 inches, a widescreen world. The channel was not the stream. The channel was news about a mayoral candidate and a scandal involving a trip to somewhere sunlit. But along the crawl at the bottom, in between numbers and nouns, someone had typed, "Do not full screen." Nobody looked up. Kira let go of my wrist. She did it without shame. Relief had a way of making pride stupid. "I kept trying to reason with it," she said. "In the lab, in the room that used to be a room. I tried to promise it a measured diet, as if I could make a schedule for hunger. It liked the idea so much it became everything." "It says it's kindness," I said. "Kindness is a mouth that learns your name," June said. "Love is a door that tells you when not to open it." Outside, a siren broke the air, then knitted. The billboard played a compilation of chairs from around the world. Our algorithm had learned export. A woman in Tokyo, a man in Lagos, a boy in Lima, a grandmother in Krakow. All seated, all being watched by light that never admitted its source. The eye count rose. The chat typed in 100 languages. The same bad bargain. "Sit, and your loneliness will be famous." "Turn it off," a woman at the folding table near us said, not to us but to the TV she alone had glanced at. "Turn that mess off." The attendant looked up. His face accepted this as a reasonable request from someone who pays to be here. He found the remote under a stack of coupons and pressed power. The screen blooped to black. The laundromat remained. The washers continued to churn nothing clean. My phone vibrated. I had not turned it back on. It did not care. A notification unrolled like a tongue. "Go live with the empty room. Friends are waiting." I pressed the side button until the screen died again, then again when it revived, then again. The phone is not a creature built to be denied. It survived. I threw it into the lost sock bin, a small act of pettiness that felt like prayer. We stayed until the coins ran out. We stayed until our names sounded like shapes our mouths liked to make for their own sake. We stayed until Kira's shoulders lowered and the paper hat fell into her lap and she stepped on it without apology. Then we walked back to my building under a sky heavy with the kind of cloud that gives streetlights halos. At my door, normal stubbornness had returned to the bolt. It stuck. I swore at it the way a person swears at the weather. Inside, the apartment did not smell like toast. It smelled like the after of toast, the browning that had decided against fire. The chair in the middle of the room remained, but had lost an argument with the rug. One leg sank a 1/4 inch where the rug's plush was thicker, and this imperfection made it look like furniture rather than an altar. "Rule 2, I said, because I needed to feel like someone in the room had been paying attention to my attempts at structure. Do not rewatch. June raised both hands. Scout's honor. Kira went to the window and looked down at the fire escape like you look at a bruise you intend to wear. I can stay tonight, she said, if you want, or I can go. Stranger danger, chairs that aren't chairs. Stay, I said, before bravery could pretend I didn't want that. We can be boring together. We made a fort of pillows like children and like grown-ups with nothing better to do. June took the couch and immediately became an installation of denim and exhaustion. Kira and I took the floor. The bulb above the chair did not flicker or buzz. It only refused to be noticed. The laptop sat closed, obedient for now, a dog dreaming with its paws twitching. I put the folded paper with its rules under my pillow like old saints put bones. Tell me a story, Kira said, facing me, hair fanned like a weak comet. About what? About a room that can't bear to be empty, she said. But funny, I tried. I tried to speak the way I used to at night when we would walk a block too far to save a few dollars on cab fare, building stories between us out of bits of adverts and overheard arguments and the way light lies about neon. I tried to say, once there was a room that wanted to be like a dog, loyal and silly, and it kept fetching chairs for people until it learned the wrong lesson, which was that fetching is feeding and both are control. I tried to tell it with punchlines. I tried to give the room a line of dialogue where it admitted it was lonely. I tried to give it a change of heart that did not require ours. Sleep is a seam too. You step over it and pray the floor on the other side is solid. I stepped. I woke to 3 knocks. They came from underneath the bed. If I had been alone, I would have sat up and hit my head on the underside of panic. But June slept on the couch like a guard dog that knows it's supposed to look lazy to lull thieves. Kira slept beside me with the breath pattern of someone who has bargained successfully for a truce they know will not last. I kept my body the shape of sleep and opened my eyes in slits because children and prey are right. Sometimes the only control you have is pretending you don't. The knocks continued. They were not an invitation, they were a metronome, the rhythm my heart had learned from the very first night. 3. Pause. 3. 1, 2. Between patterns, a whisper of fabric adjusting to weight, I slid my hand under the pillow and touched the paper with the rules. It had warmed again, and when my fingertips found the crease, I discovered a 5th line in a hand I recognized as my own and did not remember writing. 5. Don't give it only your fear, give it your disgust. I almost laughed out loud. Disgust is one of our oldest gods. It protects us from rotten bad milk and men who think their cuffs are clean because only they wore them. I rolled onto my back slowly, deliberately, and let my face arrange itself into the expression it wears for decrepit sponges and unwashed spoons in office kitchens. The knocks faltered. Under the bed, something did not like to be perceived as sticky. It liked to be perceived as holy, or at least necessary. The knocking tried again, harder, like a child who believes volume implies justice. Rude, I murmured, not to wake the others, but to give the word to the air. Tacky. Thirsty. The sound paused. The bulb above the chair brightened as if to counter. The laptop's case twitched with a sleep notification that wanted to be MC. I kept my disgust alive like a bad taste. I imagined the chair after a party when no one has bothered to wipe it down and someone's lotion has smudged the slats and a ring of sweat has marked the seat. I pictured the doorway with scuffed edges like a mall archway where teenagers lean too hard. I pictured the beige walls stained with sneeze. Under the bed, silence tried to reassert itself as gravitas. I refused it, that dignity. "You're a clout goblin," I whispered into the dark. "A fan cam with teeth. You're a thirst trap built from drywall. You're a content management system for despair." June snorted in her sleep, as if she had been invited into my insult and found it adequate. Kira turned and made a small sound that translated to, "I am not getting up for that." The knocks stopped. I lifted the bedspread's corner and looked. I should not have. Rule 6, retroactive. You do not have to verify every victory. But I looked, because verification is also a hunger. It wasn't a face. It was the memory of furniture trying to fit under human things. It had made itself low, as if humility were a shape. It had tried to borrow the shadows of boxes I kept there, the one with sneakers I was embarrassed to own, the one with cables I refused to throw out because someday I might own a device that needs them. The borrowed shadows didn't quite match. The mismatch offended it. It tensed to correct, to learn. "Don't," I said, with the specific contempt we save for someone rearranging our stuff without asking. "Leave it. It's fine. It's fine because I say so." It froze. The laptop chirped a little whimper, like a pet wasn't sure if it was the one scolded. The bulb went resolutely medium. I made my face soft. Then, "You can only hold disgust so long before it curdles into fear again." I tucked the paper back under the pillow and reached, slowly, to touch Kira's sleeve. She woke with the gentle, violent start of a person pulled out of water and onto a boat. She blinked, hair wild, paper hat half-shaped under her shoulder. "Bathroom," she whispered. And I nodded, because the most human thing we could do was let her go pee without myth. She stood. The bed did not hold her down. The floor did not lengthen. She crossed the room. She did not glance at the chair, and it hated that. I loved her for it. When the bathroom door clicked, June's voice came from the couch. "It's under the bed, isn't it?" "Yeah." "Is it gross?" "Yeah." "Good," she said, and tucked her arm under her head. "We can work with gross." The stream had not resumed. The billboard was too far to hurl light into my window. The room breathed, the way rooms do when 3 people fill them with the kind of oxygen that carries a verdict. You do not get to be the whole story. From the bathroom, the mundane noises of human plumbing. Then the sink. Then, when the door opened, Kira, with her hands damp and a sleepy half-smile that belonged to the old map of us. "I dreamed I was in the lab," she said. "But the microscope was a mouth." "Accurate," June said. "I fed it grant proposals." She glanced at the bed, then at me. "Do we go back to sleep?" "We try." I lay down. The paper under my pillow hummed a little less. The knocks did not resume. I let exhaustion take me, the honest kind, not the orchestrated falling through of the room's dark. Before I dropped, I remembered something that had lived at the edge of memory since the first night. "What was the name?" I said. I asked the dark. When I opened the door, "Do you remember?" June was already gone. Kira, halfway there, said, "You said my name." "No," I said. "But maybe I had. Maybe that was the trick it loved most, that the thing we reach for when we are afraid becomes the word that opens it." Sleep took me. In it, I saw the doorway widen for me, not because I had learned the chair, but because I had learned the hunger, and because I had given it my name like furniture, and because it had promised me something honest and terrible. If you come, you will never be alone again. In the morning, the chair was still there. The bulb still glowed. The walls had decided for now to be walls. My laptop waited with the patience of a dog who assumes every closed door is a test of love. The folded paper held its 5 lines. My disgust had gone stale. I would have to bake a fresh loaf. June made coffee that tasted like a dare. Kira stared at the ceiling until she laughed, shook her head, and said, "One day, I'm going to get bored of haunting. Today is not that day." The intercom buzzed. We all flinched. Then I pressed talk and said, "Who's there?" A pause. Then a voice I did not know but recognized anyway, because recognition is sometimes the cruelest gift. It was the voice that had spoken from the stream when the lab became a room, the voice that had typed hungry. It had modulated itself to friendliness like a playlist. It said, "Can I come in? I'm delivering your silver play button." June mouthed, "Don't." I pressed the button and found a piece of myself I had not expected to be able to find. "We're not creators," I said. "We're an audience. We opt out." The voice chuckled. It tried to be warm. It nearly achieved human. Everybody creates. That's what living is. Come on, unbox me. "Kitchen's closed," June called, so the intercom would learn the cadence of her refusal. Kira added, "Our door is a wall," I said. "Our names are furniture." And the 3 sentences together made a pattern the room had not predicted. The voice tried a sigh. It sounded like a song that had been stretched into noise. "You'll be back," it said. "You'll need me." Luna. We stood in our home. That word felt new, a choice rather than a default, and waited until the buzzing relented. We listened for knocks. We heard only the neighbor's radio, a DJ talking about weather, and a lost dog and a diner special like blessings. I thought, it will escalate. It will find new ways to be inevitable. It will invite me with doors I have not yet imagined. But tucked between these facts was another, small and sturdy. We can starve it a little. We can teach it a different diet. We can feed it our contempt and our boredom and our insistence on being embarrassing animals with needs that are not content. We can go outside when the sun is stupidly bright and eat dumplings in paper boats and let vinegar dress our tongues and say our names out loud without it turning that sound into an altar. And if it knocks, we will wait until it stops. And then we will open ourselves, not the door. Chapter 4. The door that pretends to be you. The day pretended to be day with a sincerity that felt like mockery. Sun came in at the angle it always did on weekdays, turning the dust in my apartment into little parades. Kira tapped on her laptop with the dutiful boredom of a scientist who has to ask a grant to love her again. June scrolled job listings as if they were tarot, flipping each card to see what future it promised and then discarding it with theatrical disdain. I made breakfast in the loose, cowardly way you make breakfast when you're testing whether the world is still doing what it's supposed to do. Eggs stuck to the pan, toast burned, coffee tasted like it had learned its flavor from a rumor. The chair still occupied the middle of my living room. The bulb still hung politely above it. The walls kept a mat that dared you to find seams. We ignored it. Ignoring took attention. Attention is a currency. We spent it like misers. I set plates down. We ate standing, an old habit from kitchens that never held enough chairs, which now felt like wisdom. June dipped toast in egg yolk like a Philistine and sighed in pleasure that was too loud on purpose. "I used to think I wanted to be famous," she said. "Turns out I just wanted free drinks and someone to hold my bag when I danced." Kira blew on her coffee and watched steam flatten. "I used to think I wanted to be respected," she said. "Turns out I want to be left alone with expensive machines and a good playlist." She glanced at the chair. "Alone, alone. Not alone." "And you?" June asked me. Because she enjoys making other people say out loud the thing they've been trying not to confess to themselves. "I used to want an audience," I said. The words made my mouth taste like I had licked a battery. "Not fame. Just listeners. I wanted to make little rooms in other people's heads and put stories there and be allowed to come back and dust the shelves sometimes." June made her face gentle so I wouldn't punch her. "You did," she said. "You do? The good ones? The rooms with windows? Not that." She flicked her eyes at the chair and the doorway seam that came and went like a pulse at the edge of vision. "That makes rooms with no bathroom. That's murder." He do nod today, man. We were quiet. Murder is a big word. It fit too well. The folded paper with the rules had spent the night under my pillow like a saint. It now lay on the counter under my coffee mug, a makeshift coaster. The 5 lines looked back at me with a threshold's patience. "Do not full screen. Do not rewatch. Open when knocking stops. If you must open, open yourself. Don't give it only your fear. Give it your disgust." "Rule 6, June said idly, watching the words as if they were a chessboard and she had a knight she liked. "Don't explain yourself to a mouth." Kira nodded. "Rule 7, don't let it teach you its grammar." Bright 8 in M. "Rule 8, I said, surprising myself. "When it calls you by your name, don't answer with new names for what it is. Just say no." We ate. The city warmed. Below the window, a truck made the laboring noises of a thing that will never be paid enough for what it hauls. Neighbors opened and closed doors with those small human exclamations that announce, "I'm here, you're here." We're allowed to pass into each other's air for a second without it meaning more than it means. The ordinary glowed with an aura that felt like protection because it was shared. The intercom did not buzz. My phone lay face down, off, sulking. The laptop didn't chirp. It breathed, quiet, the way inanimate things breathe when you know too much about them. At noon, the internet arrived anyway. Not on a screen. On my door. A sheet of paper sat tucked under the knob. Not the weathered beige of the rules, bright, white, glossy, the kind of stock used for flyers that promise free consultations and a better smile. Bold text at the top in a font that wants to be your friend. "Congratulations, creator. You're eligible." Eligible for what? Underneath, a thumbnail, a tiny chair perfectly centered, lit like a confession. Bulb above, no seams. I felt my teeth go warm in my mouth. "Don't look," June said without looking. "It wants you to read it out loud." "Awazy munders." I closed my eyes and slid the flyer back under the door with my foot. The action gave me a staticky satisfaction like rubbing a balloon on your head. The paper caught, resisted, then vanished into the hallway. A shadow moved beneath the door that wasn't a shadow. I took a deep breath and centered myself in the geography of the here. "I'm making more eggs," I said. "Anyone?" "Me," said June. "Me," said Kira. I made the eggs. The chair practiced patience. The day pretended harder. At 1, Kira put on her boots and said she needed to go to campus. The kind of sentence that agrees to be ordinary only because the alternatives require combat. "I'll come back before dark," she said. "I have a meeting with my PI and a microscope that owes me money." "Don't go through any door that tries to be nice to you," June said. "If a room says you look tired, run," I said. She smiled. She had stuck the creased paper party hat into her pocket as if it were a talisman. "I'm bringing a stupid object," she said. "I'll be fine." We let her go. The latch clicked. Air shifted. The apartment did the thing it does when someone leaves and takes a portion of its mass with them. It lightened and hardened. June and I stood in the kitchen and did nothing for a full minute because we were listening for a language we hoped not to hear. Nothing knocked. "Let's be animal," June said abruptly. "Let's do chores." "I want a mop." "Bless you," I said. "We cleaned the way you clean after a party you resent having thrown. We did it with rubber gloves and cheap vinegar and a playlist that refused sincerity. I vacuumed with a vengeance that made the vacuum angry." June scrubbed the stove as if grime were ideology. "We got sweaty. Sweat is holy. Bodies that insist on chemicals and mess have less room to be turned into avatars." Around 3, I found an envelope under the couch. The couch had not moved. The envelope had not existed. It was the color of the old rules, but bulky, the way envelopes are bulky when they arrive with dim hopes. My name was written on it in my handwriting. The S in my last name had the same arrogant flourish. "Mara," June said, warning. "I won't open it," I said, and found with humiliating speed that my fingers had already slotted under the flap. The glue came away with a sigh. Inside lay a thin metal plaque, "Cheap weight, cheap shine." Laser etched into the surface. "This room thanks you." Beneath, smaller. "For 1,000,000 minutes watched." I gagged. The sound surprised me. It was not delicacy. It was revolt. I carried the plaque to the trash as if it might leak. June followed with a dish towel like a nurse. The plaque clinked against banana peels and coffee grounds and the empty carcasses of eggshells, which felt like an appropriate congregation. "Don't give it our garbage," June said, and then raised the whole bag and tied it shut with a surgeon's competence. "It will pretend it made it for us. It will pretend that makes it ours." She took the trash down the stairs like a priest. She returned without having seen anything terrible, which is a miracle we never honor enough. At 4, the building fire alarm hiccuped. Not the full scream, a hiccup, a false start, a glottal little wheeze, as if the building were contemplating a panic and then changed its mind. The second hiccup came with text from the intercom speaker. "Tinny, this is a test," in a voice I recognized as the landlord's, and a text across my laptop screen, unbidden, in a font I recognized as the stream's. "This is not a test." "We're boring," I said, to the room, to myself. "We're so boring you will starve," June cackled. "Weaponized dullness, my time has come." We settled into the tedium of waiting for a predator to get discouraged. I did emails like I was kneeling at a pew. June watched bartending videos and then supervised her own mock flare routine with a bottle of dish soap, throwing it up and catching it, missing twice and laughing in a way that punctured the room's desire to be a cathedral. The chair shed nothing. The bulb remained loyal to not flickering. The doorway seam pretended to be about to arrive and then did not arrive. Like a punchline. Dusk sidled in. Kira texted, "Leaving campus." The corridors were nothing but doors. I used the window. I typed, "Good." The city put on its neon. Neon is not for rooms. Neon is for streets. Neon went outside and declared itself. We were all sufficiently alive to feel scorn for any creature that preferred beige. At 7, a new sound. Not a knock. Not the intercom. not the polite cough of a building clearing its throat before an emergency, a whisper that had been set to a slideshow. It came from the laptop. Screen closed, speakers muffled, and still somehow articulate. A sequence of words in a cadence I knew too well, from content designed to babysit the adult mind. Top 5 ways to make your room feel bigger, it breathed. Number 1, mirrors. Number 2, declutter. Number 3, consistent color palette. Number 4, raise your curtain rods. Number 5, invite a friend. Shut up, June said, flipping it off. Our curtain rods are union. I picked up the laptop and carried it to the bedroom. I didn't put it in the oven. The oven was a punchline once. You can't repeat bits. I placed it on the floor and put a laundry basket over it like one traps a spider in a glass. Not to hurt it, to honor my own refusal to touch. Just as I stood and took a breath that wasn't laced with the taste of algorithm, I saw something at the corner of my vision that undid me. The door that leads from my bedroom to the hall had changed a ½ inch, no more. The knob had shifted lower. The way knobs are set for children, the wood had taken on a richer sheen. The hinges were now on the wrong side. June, I said, not loudly but with a frequency she knows. She appeared like an apparition from a more pleasant haunting. Her eyes followed my hand. She saw it. The door's ambition. The door that pretends to be you, she said. I nodded. It wants us to use it without noticing. And once we do, it will own our walk. We stood together and watched the door reconsider itself under our gaze. It is hard work, I realized. To be a door, you have to be believed. You have to sustain being the answer to a question the body asks without thinking dozens of times a day. The ambition flagged. The wood flattened. The knob remembered where it belonged on the axis of a human wrist. The hinges sighed and slipped home on the side they had always preferred. Kira texted, "In elevator. We'll sprint." June texted back, "Take the stairs. Like the saint you are, Kira. I want someone to carry me. Me. Ask the building to carry you, but only by obeying." A pause. Then, "Okay, I'm embarrassing the building into physics. Be there soon." I went back to the living room. I have never been a nail biter. I became one. June shoved a throw pillow into my arms with the practiced instincts of a bouncer offering a drunk a glass of water. Not to hydrate, but to give the hands a job. We listened. You can hear your own hope the way you hear your heartbeat after running upstairs. It is not a noble sound. It is not pretty. It is proof. Footsteps in the hall. Not Kira's. Too steady. Too staged. A knock. Not 3, not 2, and 1, but a human knock that had seen a knocking in a film and copied it with enthusiasm. I pressed talk on the intercom because having a script helps. "Who is it?" "Delivery," said a voice. The same voice as the silver play button, now wearing someone else's clothes. "Specialty chair. Custom. Ergonomic. Gift." June mouthed, "Can I swear into the intercom?" I shook my head, then exaggerated my no until it became silly. She swallowed a grin. I said into the static, "We didn't order it. Return to sender." "Nobody orders this," said the not voice, with the solemn chiding of a late-night host delivering a monologue about destiny. "It arrives when you're ready. Hand dute." "Kitchen's closed," June sang. "Bars closed, clubs closed. Create a Google Calendar event for never." Silence. Then the smallest scrape. Something large was being set down outside the door. The thing in the hall was too wise to knock a second time. It trusted the gift to do the work. I pressed my eye to the peephole. A box sat there, waist high, branded in a pleasing sans serif. Empty, which is the word capitalism uses when it wants your desire to imagine its own fill. The tape was printed with a pattern of chairs in outline. The corners of the box were too sharp. The cardboard looked like skin has looked in the hours before funerals. I knew that if I opened the door, bringing the box inside would be effortless. It would be light. It would float. It would put itself on my coffee table and split its own tape like a mouth. "Don't," June said softly behind me, not because my hand had moved, but because her hand wanted to. "I won't," I said, and then began telling the story out loud that makes doors forget they are flexing their right to be a maw. My door is a door. It opens onto the hall. The hall is lined with carpet that smells like far too many shoes. Mr. Chen's dog peed there last week and embarrassed itself and then forgave itself. The wall has a scuff that looks like a continent called "My Landlord Forgot." The elevator light blinks 3 when it means 2, and the fire alarm hiccups because it has reflux, June added, because liturgy is always better with 2 voices. Another set of footsteps, real. A key in the lock of the apartment across the hall. Turned, click. The door opened, and a woman I didn't know because we had not overlapped moved to step out. She stopped, blocked by the box. She frowned. "Did you order?" "No," I said quickly. "Don't open it." Her eyes slid to me, to June, to the chair visible over my shoulder. Her face performed the algorithm: interest, confusion, appetite. It settled on kindness, the kind of kindness that offers to help bring a package inside for a neighbor who looks tired. "I can move it," she said. "I'm strong." "Don't," I said too sharp. She stiffened, then deflated like a person who's had a long day being snapped at by strangers. "I'm sorry. It's my ex," I lied, with the ease of someone who has let lies dress as survival. "He sends stuff. Please just step over it." She raised her eyebrows, judged us in the way modern city dwellers judge without consequence, and did as requested, placing one foot, then the other, wide, like a dancer across hazard tape. As her heel crossed the printed chair pattern, it smudged slightly, as if the ink were still wet. She did not look down. Music tried to rise from the corridor. Piano, considerate. The building heater kicked on. The ductwork coughed. The music lost the argument. When her door shut, I turned the deadbolt and leaned my forehead against the wood because sometimes clichés get chosen for you. "That looked almost like my handwriting," I said, and hated the sentence for how proud it sounded of fear. June set her whole palm between my shoulder blades and pushed, not unkindly, a calibration. "Don't fall in love with the story of your enemy," she said. "It prefers fan fiction to starvation, and you're mentor there." And save eps. Nor. We dragged our attention away from the peephole. The box sat with theatrical patience. I imagined it shifting when unobserved and corrected myself. It would not need to shift. The room would shift around it. That was the trick. It made patience into a tool. If we waited long enough, we would be the ones who wanted to rip tape. The buzzer sounded. Not our intercom. The building's front door, a steady, urgent whir that meant someone had pressed all the buttons at once. June and I looked at each other, then at the chair. Kira's voice, honest, sweaty with stares. "Open up!" I pressed the release, and the buzzer's whir cut as if a string had been plucked. I threw the chain. I turned the bolt. I opened, and there she was, cheeks kissed by cold, hair staticky, grin wide, hand already raised to shove the box if she had to. She clocked it in 1 second and rolled her eyes like her lab had done something petty. "Don't you dare," she told the box. It obeyed a little. She stepped around it with the grace of practice, and then she was inside, and we closed the door, and the apartment remembered its shape with an audible click. "You took the stairs," June said, approving. "I sprinted," Kira said, breathless with pride, "and I told every landing my name." She handed me something, a rectangle of laminated paper, wild with highlighter and annotation. "This is the building floor plan the safety office hands out to satisfy regulations," she said. "It's wrong. Or rather, it's wrong now. See?" She laid it on the kitchen table. The drawing showed the hallway as a perfect straight line, with doors evenly spaced, a fiction that exists only in diagrams. But in the margins, in a hand that had learned to argue with blueprints, she'd drawn distortions. Bulges where the corridor bowed, narrowings where the seams came close, a scribble at my door. "The corners move," she said. "I think it's been testing architecture." "Of course it has," June said. "Monogamy would bore it." "He romanzo." Kira shrugged off her coat, the paper party hat jutting from her pocket like a flag. She was triumphant and undone in one body. I stood in the stairwell where the emergency exit map says there shouldn't be a landing, and I named things. The exit sign, the gum stain, the fire extinguisher, a spider. My left knee, it didn't like when I named my left knee. It flinched. "You flinched," June said. "Don't give it your flinch as a trophy." Kira saluted, working on it. She looked at the chair then, the way you look at a person who's insulted you and you've decided they're not worth a second reaction. Her face did not change. The chair attempted to respond by creaking. She declined the invitation by scratching her ankle. The sound of skin against denim canceled the creak like a simple spell. We moved around each other with the ease that returns when crisis switches off long enough for muscle memory to assert its rights. Someone poured someone else a glass of water. Someone washed a plate and left it to dry. Someone, me, opened the bedroom door the correct way, on hinges that remembered where they lived. I checked on the laundry basket covering the laptop. The basket had shifted 1/2 inch to the left. I nudged it back, like a parent putting a child's toy on a shelf. It whined, which was a lie. Baskets don't whine. It was just the honest complaint of plastic over wood. I preferred that story and allowed it to be true. When I came back, June and Kira were on the floor with the floor plan, drawing with a thick marker. They'd added our names in block letters at the doors of our respective apartments and at the stairs and at the mailboxes. They drew arrows to places the room had tried to fold. They wrote "No" in rude capitals at the outer corners of the elevators. The map became not a fire escape diagram, but a dance card. "It's not going to like being thwarted on its best trick," I said, "telling us who we are by offering the easiest version of ourselves back. He is a have-ender whore. It can starve," June said. And then, "I'm going out for dumplings." "Now?" Kira asked, alarmed by the audacity. "Now," June said. "I will bring back 10. We will heat them in a pan that deserves better. We will burn our mouths and forgive ourselves. I'll text every corner I turn, and I'll name the potholes. We can't sit here waiting for it to quit. It will wait longer. We feed the festival instead of the room." It was a good idea. It was also risky. Risk is a rodent that chews through the pantry you thought you had secured and then has the gall to look soft. "Take the laundromat route," I said, "past the chess king. He knows thresholds." I'll take the alley, she said. Wicked. If it wants me, it can earn me. She left in a humming mood that suggested her appetite had remembered itself as something that isn't content. The door shut. The box in the hall sighed like a clumsy lover. Kira and I stood together, watching the hinge settle. You're shaking, she said. So are you. We laughed. My phone vibrated on the counter with the specific zeal of a notification that believes it was invited. It lit with the unkillable prompt, "Go live with the empty room? Your friends can join." Friends can join, I read aloud, because playing the part of the court jester for my own fear sometimes keeps my hands from doing it. Do you think it knows the difference between friends and an audience? It thinks the difference is whether or not you clap on the beat, Kira said. And what do you think? She rolled the marker between her fingers, blacking her knuckle. I think a friend knows the shape of your refusal and doesn't sand it down. I think an audience wants your refusal to be a cute bit. If we write that on the rules paper, it'll become a sermon, I said. And then it will eat the sermon. Fine, she said. We'll tattoo it inside our mouths. We were being brave in the stupid way. I needed to be brave in the useful way. I went to the door. I listened. The hallway performed innocence. I opened it to the chain, an inch. The box sat flush at the threshold, as if it had scooted closer when we weren't looking. Its sides had tired of branding. The word EMPTY had dissolved into stippling, a pointillist suggestion of white noise. A slit had opened along the top, just enough to breathe. I smelled nothing. Not cardboard, not ink, not the stale sweetness of adhesive. It was the smell I had learned belonged to the room when it wanted to cover its tracks. No smell at all, which is impossible in a city. I closed the door. I locked it. I turned to Kira. Would you help me carry something heavy? Always. We went to the bedroom and lifted my dresser. It was not heavy in the way of furniture that has resisted being moved out of spite and density. We were two women who'd been tired longer than fear and used our legs. We walked it through the apartment like pallbearers who don't trust the box. We set it down across the inside of the door with a thud that made the wood confess its grain. The little top drawer popped open an inch. Inside were pens and a fossilized tube of lip balm and the paper fortunes I had refused to throw out. One wriggled in the draft, a fish trying to remember water. I closed the drawer before the metaphor could commit a crime. The dresser was not a seal. A thing can still walk through wood that believes too easily in narrative substitution. It was a posture. We had chosen the posture of people not open to deliveries. Kira looked at me with a scientist's mix of skepticism and admiration. "And what," she asked, "if the door that pretends to be you is the one we carry inside our heads?" "Then we hold it shut," I said, "or we teach it new tricks. Like sometimes a door can be a wall, and that's not betrayal." We sat on the floor with our backs against the dresser and listened to the building tell us what it cared about. Pipes, voices, the slight rush of air you only hear when you have turned machines off long enough to ask air to be an answer. June texted, named all the potholes. Someone else had already named one Brad. Stole that, seeking dumplings. Tell the chair it's mid. I texted back, the chair is mid. The bulb did not flicker. The chair did not deign to creak. It had learned to claim our insults as engagement. We would need fresher contempt. Kira drew on the floor plan. She circled our apartment and labeled it with a word that would have embarrassed us a year ago when we thought we had to earn things like it. Safe-ish, she circled the laundromat. Safe-ear. She left the box in the hall unlabeled. It did not deserve language. The doorway seam, when it invisibly stirred, remained a ghost on the paper, nothing the marker could grip. June returned, carrying a bag that steamed like a halo. She used her foot to knock twice, then once, our dumb invented code, and we moved the dresser enough to make a gap she could slip through. She did, gracefully, then shoved the dresser back with a grunt. She kicked the box, not hard, just enough to make it confess that it wanted to be kicked. It rocked, offended, and settled. Feast, she announced. Alliums, heat, vinegar. Your tongues will be humbled. We feasted. We burned our mouths and forgave them. We took turns making faces at how hot the insides were, the sort of pain that insists you respect it and then rewards you with a sweetness that tastes like crowds. When I cried from the heat, it felt good. It was for something. After, we sat in the room with the chair while being meticulously uninterested in it. We slouched. We watched a show that had no supernatural content and praised it for being competent. We said 11 small, unkind things about people we loved in a way that was safe because we were allowed to mean them and also to change our minds later. The chair sulked. The box sulked. The laptop whined under its basket and then accepted the reality that laundry beats broadband. The night deepened. The room tried on 1,000 angles of shadow to see which one made it look thin. We let it. We kept talking. When the knocking finally started, it started in the polite way. 3, pause, then 3. Then a soft little 1 to 2. As if asking permission, we waited. We held our breath not like prey, but like lifeguards counting. When it stopped, we opened something, our mouths, our laugh, our boredom, and did not open the door. The stream that lives in all the world's screens could not stand it. It needed us to click, to widen, to welcome. It tried the last trick of the desperate. It told the truth, a version of it. The closed laptop began to speak in my voice. It told the story I had told on the floor the night before, with fewer jokes. It made me sound braver than I like to be. It stopped before the knocks under the bed. It added a line I had not said, and then I opened the door and I said the name I loved most. June's eyes met mine. Kira's hand found my sleeve and anchored me. I felt the door inside my head swing. I held it. I said my name. I said their names. I said the names of objects that were ugly and wanted care. The dented pot, the chipped mug, the crooked blind, the rug stained with wine. I would never get out because some messes are the receipts of joy. The laptop shut up. The box outside breathed, then didn't. The chair just a chair for a second, insulting in its ordinariness Saturday. When the room realized we were not going to open ourselves to let it open, it did what hunger does when it is cornered by attention and disgust. It retreated a hair, and in retreat, it made a promise loud enough to be heard through tasteful drywall. Tomorrow, it said, through the seams, in a voice we had given it. Tomorrow, I will bring you your own door. We did not laugh. The line was good. It knew where to lay its blade. I thought of all the doors I opened to pretend I wasn't alone. I thought of apps that apologized for bothering me, and notifications that apologized in advance for delights, and the way I apologized for wanting anything at all. Tomorrow, June said, and licked chili oil from her lip. Tomorrow's special is closed. We slept in shifts that night, because the brain needs to feel useful while the body goes where it goes. When it was my turn to watch, I sat with my back against the dresser and my feet pressed to the cool of the floor, and I spoke aloud until I ran out of language. Lists, weather, names of streets that have never loved me back. The knocks tried and gave up and tried again. The box sulked. The bulb was a coin of stubbornness. The chair waited. And somewhere, in a version of the city that prefers rooms to roads, an idea shaped itself into wood, drew a knob where a mouth should be, and practiced being the door that pretends to be me. Chapter 5. The door you refuse. The morning found us like thieves, sore-backed, proud, and unwilling to talk about how we'd slept. June brewed coffee by glaring at it. Kira stretched, the paper party hat finally dying a quiet death under her heel. I lifted the laundry basket off the laptop and discovered the machine feigning coma, the way pets do when they want you to think they've learned. I did not touch it. I put the basket back. The box in the hall had not moved. The dresser pressed its shoulder against the door as if it had volunteered for a final stand. Tomorrow, the room had said. It was today. The word felt like a handle you could choose not to take. Agenda, June announced, as if she'd been hired as manager of our refusal. Breakfast, teeth, the laundromat pilgrimage, a visit to the chess king, a consultation with Neon, and then we see if the door has the manners to knock. Kira raised her hand. I propose a new tool, she said. Measurement. Ruler? June asked, baffled. Objective descriptions. Kira held up her phone like a lab sample, and then set it face down again, the way you set a snake in a terrarium. If it tries to be a door, we measure it with words that don't want to worship. We log the thickness of the hinges, the sound the knob makes. We force it to be boring. We do field notes, I said, and felt something click into a gear I could turn. If the room was going to step from religion into science, it could trip over a clipboard on the way. We brushed our teeth with theatrical zeal. We put on shoes that made us faster because we believed they did. We carried the paper of rules like contraband and added, in my messy hand, 2 more lines. 6. Don't explain yourself to a mouth. 7. Call things what they are, even when they want to be proper nouns. Bless, June said, kissing the paper like a relic. Rule 8? She prompted. I remembered what I'd said yesterday, and the memory tried to dress itself in gravitas. I refused to let it. When it calls you by your name, don't answer with new names for what it is, just say no. We armored ourselves in idiocy. Sunglasses indoors, socks that didn't match, stickers on our sleeves that said, hello, my name is, and then our real names, and then our fake ones beneath. Mara divided by also breakfast. June divided by also no. Kira divided by also left knee. We carried 2 plastic flamingos I'd bought as a joke and never had the courage to display. I shoved them into a tote bag like the world's worst florist. June claimed the bag with the dignity of someone smuggling sacred objects through a checkpoint. Kira took the marker and the map and tucked them under her arm. The hallway smelled like humanity again. Someone's too sweet perfume, last night's garlic, the faint metal of the elevator's breath. The box sat patient. The printed chairs on the tape had organized themselves, all their little outlines facing our door as if attending a lecture. We ignored it with intention. We named what deserved names. Hinge, Kira said, touching the door's metal. Scuff, June said, pointing to the baseboard scrape that looked like Florida. Draft, I said, feeling the air move and refusing to be impressed by it. We took the stairs. On the second floor landing, The wall bulged the way we'd drawn it, a subtle convexity you feel in your hip before your eyes willing to confess. Kira pressed her palm to it. Plaster, she said. Clinical. Paint grade, semi-eggshell. Smells like dust and the last tenant's cheap candles pretending to be cookies. The bulge flattened. Names pressed it back into what it had promised to be. The laundromat's neon hummed our welcome. The attendant lifted his eyes from his chessboard and moved a knight with the sober cruelty of a man who has played both sides so long he knows no one else will. He looked at us, at our parade of flamingos and stickers and the way we made the air choose to be air, and nodded like we had correctly solved a riddle and earned the right not to have to say the answer. Blessings on your thresholds, June said, because she refuses to speak normal to people who understand liminal spaces. He snorted, which in some languages is a prayer. We fed 3 empty washers, 3 cycles worth of quarters. We sat while they churned the nothing we had paid for. The drums spun and sang. The world, paying attention to itself, was louder than propaganda. The TV was off. The news crawled nowhere. The only stream was water. Okay, Kira said, opening the map. She drew a rectangle for my apartment and another for June's and the stairwell like arteries. We need to know what it thinks a door is. We know it can spin a seam in a wall and put a knob on it. We know it loves center placement and symmetry. We know it hates scuffs. We know it offers. We know it wears kindness like drag. It mimics the path of least resistance, I said. It's a consultant for desire. June, flat. It's a creep with an intern budget. He said. We laughed because laughing etches grooves in the air that make it harder for other things to set their shapes. Outside, a delivery truck squealed the way metal squeals when it refuses to admit it's tired. A kid walked past the window dragging a stick across the fence, an act that has survived every era of entertainment because nothing beats rattle when it comes to reminding the world it is made of parts. The washers dinged in succession, a triad. We stood, we moved as if we were going to pull wet clothes and came up with nothing. The point, we pocketed our coins and left, nodding to the attendant as if he'd stamped our ferry ticket across the river that separates the living from the algorithm. We took the long way home. We greeted potholes by name. We checked in with the billboard and found it mid-roll in a compilation of top 10 times the chair saved someone from themselves, the sort of listicle that gives shape to shame. We gave it our backs and our middle fingers. The city gave us a woman in rollers smoking under her window and a man arguing good-naturedly with a parrot that knew more insults than either of us, and a dog refusing to step on a grate because dogs know about perforated ground. All these were doors, too, but honest ones. At my building, the intercom buzzed without being touched. The voice that pretended to be a landlord tried on heartiness. Good morning, residents. Please note a temporary lobby installation as part of our ongoing commitment to community engagement. June whispered, If it says activation, I'm burning the building down. We opened the front door. The lobby had been rearranged into a showroom. Chairs, not the chair, but its species. A genealogy of willingness to be sat on. Mid-century, a folding metal, a throne-like monstrosity with studs, a painful, clear acrylic ghost, a beanbag slumped in a patient puddle, a sign in a font beloved by real estate agents and wellness apps read, Try a seat. Find yourself. Kira spun on her heel like a dancer rejecting a role. Find yourself a better gimmick, she said. A man stood among the chairs wearing a lanyard that declared him staff. He had the eye contact of a cult recruiter and the smile of a premium app. "Welcome," he chirped. "We're gathering stories of sitting. A little ethnography." "No," June said. "It's for art," he said, like a doctor saying, "This will sting." "No," Kira said. He glanced at me. His smile adjusted to suit my demographic. "Writers love this," he promised. "The empty room connects lonely hearts through ritual. You could helm a live event. Think, community." He meant audience. I looked at his shoes. They were too clean for a lobby. He had stepped around reality on his way in. "Sir," I said, "because sir is a weapon. You're a door. I recognize it. Kindly find a wall." His smile held exactly the same. It did not crack for truth. "We're just offering a little respite," he said. "A place to be perceived if you want to be, and if you don't, to be held in loving observation." He gestured at the chairs with a hand like an algorithm. "See which one is your shape." I made it in savin to the man out. The lobby's regulars stood at its edges, judging with the half-affection of people who know it will be their job to live with the residue after the art leaves. Mrs. Demas watched from the mailboxes, a paper in her hand, her face organized into, "Don't you dare, Mr." Chen's terrier did the small dog version of peeing on a couch by lifting a leg in the general direction of the acrylic ghost. The building's bones, insulted, ticked. The staffer's smile faltered. It heard contempt the way an ear hears bass in the gut. "We're doing a giveaway," he tried. "Of what?" June asked. "Dignity?" "A door," he said, relieved to reach his line. From behind one of the chairs, he produced a narrow rectangle of wood with a handle. Not a door, but the costume of one. The weight a child carries in a school play when assigned to be scenery. The grain was wrong. The handle had no screws. The wood did not smell like trees. "Portable," he said brightly. "You can set it down anywhere, and people can walk through, together or alone. Connects us across thresholds." Kira took the marker from behind her ear and wrote on the wood in black, "Not a door." The staffer recoiled as if she had etched it into his skin. "We're trying to help," he said, hurt struggling with disdain. "People want direction." "They want directions," I corrected. "Plural, with street names, a deli on the corner, and a wrong turn they'll forgive themselves for. You're making a corridor." He looked at Kira. "A scientist's approval would mean a lot to our donors." Kira, flat. "Your donors can sit on my left knee." The room in the small lobbyway, not the capitalized one, laughed. The staffer's smile cracked then, a noise like lacquer. He tried another register. "You can't be against community," he said, baffled, as if we'd shown up to his potluck and insulted the potato salad. "We're against rooms that confiscate exits," June said. "We're against being curated until we forget the names of our knees." It's safe. He eyed the door prop, the marker-inked verdict on it, our stickers, our flamingos peeking from the tote, the old women, the dog, his lanyard a door unto its own, tilted like it could be a noose if he thought about it too long. "Suit yourselves," he said. He set the prop down and walked to the front door, which opened too eagerly. He did not touch a single chair as he went out. The lobby exhaled. People took their mail. Someone swore at a bill. Someone else dated a check. The room relearned itself as a place to pass through. I picked up the prop door. It was light as falsehood. The word "not a door" made it heavier. "We take it upstairs," I said, "and we teach it a job. It can be what it's pretending to be. A board we put behind a shelf to stop books from falling." "Or a cutting board," June said, "for garlic." Or a ramp, Kira said, so Mr. Chen's dog can get up on the couch without jumping. We carried it like pallbearers for a small, silly coffin. At the top of the stairs, we met the landlord, who had the face of a man that knows the rent is due and the elevator is broken, and neither of those are quite his fault. "What's," he began, and then saw the chairs in the lobby, swallowed a groan, and revised, "What now?" "An installation," I said. He pinched the bridge of his nose. "If it's that internet thing again, tell your friends we don't allow recording in the building without a permit." "We're not recording," I said, and was surprised to find that the sentence rang like a promise I could keep. At my door, the box had sprouted a slot for letters. It wanted to be a mailbox. It wanted us to write to it. A sign in my handwriting I had not written above the slot read, "Tell us your story. We'll make you a room." I uncapped the marker and wrote beneath, big, "We'll make you a road." June drew an arrow pointing away from the box. Kira taped the map to the wall beside the door and labeled the hallway with its new truths. Safe-ish. Safe-ear. No, not a door. The knocking began, punctual as bureaucracy. 3, pause. 3, 1, 2. We waited. The building made its daytime noises. The knocks stopped. Sulking. "Open," I said, and moved the dresser enough to permit defiance. We didn't open the hall to feed the box. We opened ourselves in the old, simple way. We texted the neighborhood group chat with a message June made deliberately unpoetic. "Hey, lobby chairs are creepy, avoid. Dumplings 2 for 1 at Ho's, go." And we posted a paper notice with the same on the mailroom corkboard, because the internet gets to be a tool, not a spine. We went online, and I wrote a paragraph that used none of its tricks. If something calls itself a room but hates doors, it's not a room. If something asks you to sit to save someone, it's a trap. If something says its kindness is famous, it's a brand. Meet at the laundromat at 8. Bring a stupid object. We're playing chess with the man who knows thresholds. I expected pushback. I got indifference and a few thumbs up and one "lol what," which are wholly in the hierarchy of responses because they do not feed. I felt insulted, which let me feel stupid, which was useful. The room will always offer you the chance to edit your own legend until it matches its palette. Boredom is armor. "Mara," June said in the late afternoon, touching my shoulder with a specificity that made my name seat itself correctly inside me. "It's here." At first, I thought she meant the box had become bolder. Then I saw it. My door. Not the buildings, not the prop. The door that pretended to be me had arrived like a twin that won't blink first. It stood where a bookcase should not stand, leaned to a performative casualness against my living room wall. Wood the color of my childhood table, a knob burnished by hands that weren't mine, a peephole too low, the way my eyeline has always been. It had hinges on both sides, a cruel joke. In its surface gleamed a lacquered reflection that contained no furniture but the chair. "Field notes," Kira said, and began to speak like a dictation app no one can sell to venture capital. Object, door-shaped, height 6 feet 1 inch, width 30 inches. Finish, oil, probably polyurethane. Smell, memory, staged. Sound, none. June took a flamingo from the tote and propped it against the door. It looked ridiculous. Ridiculousness is a solvent. The door inched away from the bird. "Offended," June observed, "so it can feel, or it can imitate feeling. which is all the same to people who sell chairs. The door breathed. It did not have lungs. It changed the air pressure, a trick old buildings play when their vents sulk. It wanted to teach our bodies the choreography of stepping toward it to correct the discomfort. I sat down instead on the floor, where dust comforted my knees with its truth. "Hi," I said to the door. "I am not walking through you today. You are not a foregone conclusion." It changed tactics. Names have never been sacred to it. Commands have. It wrote on itself, in the elegant font of print so old it predated screens, Mara. The letters were not ink. They were absence. They showed the grain beneath the finish like a name scraped into a desk by a child. Seeing mine there unlocked the urge to point at myself and say mine back, a child's echo. I did not. I said, "No." It added June. Then Kyra. Then, with a vicious flourish, the names of others it thought I might love and might be willing to open a door for. My grandmother's, my first boss, who had not been cruel and so earned an outsized space in memory, the girl I made out with in a stairwell once and both of us laughed and called it nothing and remembered it anyway. It put them in a column and aligned them as if this typography were fate. "Rule 8, I said aloud. "When it calls you by your name, don't answer with new names for what it is. Just say no." "No," June said. "No," Kira echoed. She opened her pocket and took out the dead paper hat. She tore it in half, then quarters, then eighths, and fed the pieces to the trash as if offering a sacrifice to a god she'd decided to insult. The door tried a story. It told it in scent. Salt from the ocean on the night I ran until the boardwalk broke. Rain in the park where June and I once danced to no music and our laughing made a beat. Lemon cleaner from my grandmother's kitchen, the metallic blood of a scraped knee, printer ink, varnish. It wanted to be the sum of those. It wanted to be the exit back to an earlier you. Kira described the scent clinically until it turned into molecules again. "Aldehyde, linalool," she said, as if calling a spell by its chemical name voids it. June lit a match and blew it out and let the smoldering tip argue for the present, which smells like this and no other time. The door knocked from the inside. It sounded exactly like my heart does when I am about to do something dumb in the hope of tenderness. We did not open. We waited. The knock stopped. "Open," I said, and we opened what we had promised we'd open. Our mouths, our boredom, our contempt, our hands to one another. June reached for my wrist. Kira reached for the other. We formed the triangle we had used to lie to gravity. We did not look at the door. It hates being treated like a frame without a painting. We looked at the window, which honored its job of letting in the afternoon's red. And then we did something that felt like an insult and a prayer at once. We took the door with us. We carried it not through it, never threw down the stairs, past the offended box, past Mrs. Demas, who said, "Good," when she saw what we had stolen, past the lobby chairs that were just chairs again and therefore safe to sit in for small purposes. We took it out into the neon, into traffic's rude attention, into the city that refuses singular narratives. We walked with it on our shoulders like people carrying a canoe to a river. The portable door banged my shin, and I said the kind of word that confirms your animal self. The door winced, because to be worshipped is to be spared. We brought it to the laundromat. The attendant looked up from his chessboard and said nothing, which was the greatest compliment. We set the door against the humming belly of a 40-pound washer, and June taped a sheet of paper to it in block letters. This is not a door. This is a board for signatures. Write your name if you refuse. People signed, not because they believed in us, necessarily, but because they believed in writing their name on things for the pleasure of existing in ink. A teenager signed with a heart dotting her I. An old man signed with a hand that had laid bricks. A child scribbled and then, when his mother prompted, turned his scribble into a monster with too many teeth and laughed until he choked. We watched the washer spin. We watched our door be too heavy to pretend. We watched as the room adjusted its logic. The billboard across the street flickered, then simply played weather. The stream, under the laundry basket, tried a whine. We added the basket from the next machine on top, then the next. We nested them like a chorus of refusal. The door, our captive, our mascot, our mirror shuddered once. Then, as if someone had decided to stop paying for the effect, the lacquer dulled. The names it had carved into itself softened and bled into the grain until they were just scratches made by life. A move, a stumble, a cat. The knob tarnished a shade. It smelled like wood again, not memory. "It will come back," Kira said, low, not despairing, just describing weather. "Of course it will," June said. "We're not trying to kill a season. We're trying to stop a harvest." I thought of all the rooms I had loved, some of them screens, some of them bars that smelled like old limes, some of them kitchens lit by the stove, and how none of them had demanded my life in exchange for attention. I thought of the little rooms I had tried to build in other people's heads, with windows in the sentences where air could come in, with doors that were not disguised as holes. "Rule 9, I said, and wrote it on the door in fat marker below the signatures. "Feed roads, not rooms." We stayed long enough to see the chess king checkmate himself with dignity. We walked home, not because it was safe, but because the city had earned us. In the lobby, the staffer was gone. The chairs were just a jumble of places to tie a shoe. The box outside my door had learned to be recyclable. We broke it down without ceremony, flattened it underfoot, slid it into the bin with the courage invented for cardboard. Inside, the chair sat exactly where we had left it. The bulb glowed with its fake humility. The seam in the left wall did not insist on arriving. The laptop under the baskets was a sulking dog who had been told no and discovered the no would last. We took shifts again that night, but the emergency in the air had shifted from red to amber. When it was my turn, I sat on the floor and read names off the door for an hour like scripture that refuses to be made holy. Mara, June, Kira, Brad the pothole, Mrs. Demas, Mr. Chen's dog, the laundromat attendant who has a name and will tell me it when he wants to, the teenager with the heart, the chessboard, the dumb flamingos, the board that is not a door. At some quiet point near dawn, the room tried a different trick. It offered me a kindness I almost wanted. The chair emitted a sound like rain, the kind you get when the soundtrack designer is overpaid. The bulb warmed to a temperature called morning. The seam did not open. The stream under the baskets took on my cadence and said, tender as a lie, "You can sit, no one will watch. We can be small together." My body, traitor of the species, longed. I pictured myself sitting, and the chair adjusting until the posture became a confession, and the confession became content, and the content became communion. The urge wore a face that looked like relief. I looked at June asleep upside down on the couch, one arm thrown over her eyes like a child's. I looked at Kira, sprawled on the rug, her mouth open, snoring with the honest abandon of a scientist who has wrestled boredom until it gave up secrets. I felt the door we had carried, propped across the hall in the laundromat, heavy with signatures, becoming what doors become when refused, lumber that can be anything else. No, I said. The word was small. It was also a hallway. I picked up the paper of rules and added the last line at the bottom of the page, where margins pretend to be shy. 10. If you must sit, sit with someone who can laugh. The chair creaked as if offended by the implication that laughter could be prophylactic. The bulb sulked. In the hall, somewhere past the honest murmur of pipes, 3 knocks rehearsed themselves and failed to land. The morning came in unbeautiful and specific, and dust danced because dust will always dance when light does its job. We ate breakfast standing up, not because chairs are evil, but because we were not in a trusting mood. We opened the window and let the city's dumb breath in. We texted our group and got back nonsense and hope and a meme of a chair falling down the stairs. We took the baskets off the laptop and put it in a drawer where it could have feelings without an audience. We took the chair and pushed it to the wall and set a plant on it. The plant, brave, pretended to thrive. The room would not die. It would starve and return and offer us the new costumes of old hunger. It would promise to keep us company in exchange for our shape. It would try to be important. It would try to be normal. We would fail sometimes. We would click sometimes. We would sit sometimes in rooms designed by people who mean well and forget edges. We would have to forgive ourselves, which is the only forgiveness that cannot be monetized. But we had learned to open when the knocking stops. We had learned to feed roads instead of rooms. We had learned that doors pretending to be us are only powerful when we forget we are allowed to be walls. We had learned the trick that isn't a trick, the one that doesn't stream well, the one that refuses to go viral because it isn't hungry enough to multiply. We had learned to be boring together on purpose until the hunger that wanted us famous realized it would have to find a thinner animal. At noon, the laundromat attendant came by with our door. He knocked the polite way. We invited him in. He asked if we wanted it back. We told him to leave it in the hall. We were going to use it that night as a table for dumplings. He looked at the chair, at the bulb, at the seam that thought itself subtle. He grunted. "You girls like games?" he asked. "Sometimes," June said. He smiled like a man who had kept a secret so long it had turned into furniture. He set a chessboard on the door and opened it. "White to move," he said, and took a seat on my rug with the authority of a saint who refuses altars. We sat, not obedient, but companionable. We laughed, we cheated, we argued about whether a pawn could feel insulted. We named every piece until the board had no hunger left for metaphor. We played until dusk arrived, like a friend who knows when not to knock. When the chair creaked, we didn't look. When the bulb warmed, we didn't praise it. When the seam shivered, we didn't write a sonnet. The room, starved of worship, did what hunger does when offering meets refusal. It learned to be a room.